someone called Beetlejuice.
Don't say his name.
The deuce is loose.
No! Man, what's wrong?
Oh, I'm trying to capture the perfect primal scream.
I sense there's an enabler here, but we'll get to that.
You're a figment of my imagination.
Really? Is this a figment of your imagination?
You heard it up top. We are about to talk about the ghost with the most. We're going to say his name 3 times as we enter Sep-Tim-Burton and talk about his new film, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Colin DeVito.
Michael Juice.
Hey, partner, this is Beetle Jacob.
Oh, 2 times Beetlejuice squared.
Hey, you look familiar to me, bub.
I had some looking ghosts. Yep. Yeah, we're doing it. The juice is loose, as they say, or as he says too.
Loose.
That's right. I have to say, for viewers of the video, it is very hot and the air conditioner is broken. I can't call like a ghost to fix my AC. That would be sweet. So it's
exorcist.
Yeah, an AC exorcist or something. But it's 88 degrees indoors, so it's pretty sweet.
That's rough.
I just
You're
took a
on
cold
the moon
shower.
of Saturn right now, dog. It's all
I'm in hell.
Hot. Yeah, you're in hell.
Some
Exactly. But I'm excited to talk about the juice, and I do have my striped towel. It's the closest thing I got to a Beetlejuice outfit to dab myself down. But yeah,
I was expecting you to come on dressed as Beetlejuice, considering the lengths you've gone to with some costuming recently.
It's true. If the weather was better, it's possible.
Yeah, you gotta get your striped
jumpsuit.
suit.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are both, I would love to wear a striped jumpsuit. I don't have the impression down like you guys do. You're both making me realize how much of a country twang he kind of includes into his Beetlejuice. He's a little bit country.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of a twang. It's a lot of gutturals, It's kind of like you're almost burping all the time, Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say Mike's impression is a lot better than mine, but...
I guess to jump into it, I had never seen the original before we were going to do the sequel. So, I've only seen each of these movies one time ever, but I just,
That's crazy.
The devil's in the Deetz.
Never saw it growing up or anything.
No, I think I saw bits and pieces of it, on the TV in the background at family gatherings, but I was never, locked in watching Beetlejuice. So,
sure.
Whoops. But yeah, how about you guys? What's your history with this franchise?
We're going to say it a lot this episode. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
if
should
you
have
can fix my
already
AC,
appeared by now.
yeah, get him over here.
Hey, I'll fix that. You just got to sign this contract right here, partner.
Got to marry me, dude. All right. Deal.
For me, I did see this as a kid, and it did give me nightmares, along with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, also a movie that gave me nightmares as a kid.
Oh, you're scared of Pee-wee. As scared
clowns.
of Pee-wee as you were the juice.
No, I might have told the story about Pee-wee on the pod before, but the thing that scared me was there's the Big Bertha or whatever scene where there's the ghost driving the bus that really freaked me out as a kid.
Yeah.
And you can throw in Batman Returns in there too as another Tim Burton movie that gave me nightmares as a kid. So thanks, Tim. That's 3 movies that irrevocably, affected me as a young boy.
Right. And now we'll just get to go ahead and walk through more of that catalog in Sep-Tim-Burton, which kind of a coincidence.
Sep-Tim-Burton. Yeah.
Right. We were doing this, and then Tim Burton's Apes, and we're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just full send it.
Yeah,
Fill
it was
it
sort
out.
of a happy accident. Yeah, we got the apes at the end. We got this new movie, and so it's Sep-Tim-Burton.
You also say tuned for the other selections. Yeah.
A month before Spooky Month, but we're starting Spooky Month early.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And we're honoring a guy who I think we've said in the past is kind of like our generation's first look at what a filmmaker is, quote unquote. I think when you're a kid, somebody goes, that's a Tim Burton film. You go like, oh, I get it. Black and white stripes, goth girls with stitches. Okay,
Yeah. He definitely has
true.
an aesthetic and a style that you can say, well, that's definitely Tim Burton. And obviously that's lived on with Hot Topic and Nightmare Before Christmas, which is not directed by Tim Burton, of course, common misconception. But he produced it. So
Henry Selick. That's right.
Yeah, Henry Selick, underappreciated.
Well, I'll say my history with this film is I probably didn't see it till I was a teenager, so definitely past the nightmare era. But my first exposure was the cartoon. And so, Mike, is somebody who never saw the movies, did you ever see the cartoon?
I had come across the cartoon, I was familiar with the theme song being kind of very good. But I really don't remember watching it.
Of course,
yeah. But I was completely new to this. I'm the normie basically when it comes to this franchise.
The
Wow.
thing I remember about the cartoon that's interesting that you might surprise you is that uh, Beetlejuice and Lydia were like friends, and they would like do stuff together, and it's a very different sort of relationship than in the movies where he's kind of like this pest that won't leave her alone, and sort of a
Yeah.
pervert. Whereas in the cartoon, it's much more sort of
Yep.
not family friendly, but definitely less. He's definitely less lecherous, I would say.
Yeah, they're just going on little ghost adventures, I guess, because she likes ghost stuff, and it's like, all right,
Yeah.
palling around in the underworld, I guess. But yeah,
I think I sent you guys the opening intro song for the animation the other day
Yeah.
in our chat too, and
What
man,
a
what a
flashback
banger
that
intro!
was.
Yeah.
yeah,
Fucking great, but I have not thought about it in so long. And it's now available for the first time ever on streaming, I believe, on Tubi. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can watch all 4 seasons of the show, which I was
Wow.
also shocked to learn.
yeah. Those
That's
Planet of the
crazy,
Apes
yeah.
cartoon only got 1 season. Can you believe it?
Yes, I can.
13 episodes.
I want to talk about Tim Burton as a director, but first I want to bring up, because I think, Jacob, you shared like a Minecraft thing that had some Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
context to it. But just, I wanted to bring up like the last time you guys thought about Beetlejuice and ask you, was it when Lauren Boebert was giving a hand job during that musical? Was that the last time you guys really like thought about Beetlejuice?
Well, I guess I never realized that was a Beetlejuice musical that she was
Yeah.
at.
Wow.
Man, what a day that would have been.
The
Good
juice
for
was
them.
Beetlejuice
loose.
musical.
Yeah. No, like I said, I hadn't seen this, so I really didn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of real estate being taken up by Beetlejuice in my brain.
No.
Generally, and even Tim Burton, generally, I think the last decade really hasn't been, in my opinion, great for him. Not some of his
No,
best work, maybe.
absolutely.
So I'm more of like Scissorhands era and Sleepy Hollow
Totally.
era.
Sure. Do you guys like him?
That's-
Like, would you say those are some of your favorite movies, though, Mike Scissorhands? Or
I like his style. I like that he has a style. Like, I like his aesthetic, and I think you were asking earlier, like, that's the first idea of, oh, this is like an artist. Like, I'm not learning about Scorsese. When I'm young, I'm introduced to Tim Burton, like, oh, this is a guy with a style. So I appreciate his aesthetic. I think he's had some misses, but overall, I think his influence
Yeah.
on art is more good than bad, I guess, with his taste and more goth girls. So,
Well,
yeah.
That's the thing. I would agree with you. He's really fallen off in his later career. You can kind of separate his career into his early stuff versus his late stuff. And really post, I say even in the 2000s, he was still putting out some good movies. But like post 2010 or whenever, I guess Alice in Wonderland might be the dividing line for
The
me.
splitting.
a film
Alice in
Jacob and I
Wonderland
saw
and
in
Charlie.
college together in 3D.
That's right.
You turned to me, you said, "We got to see it in 3D." I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But definitely, I mean, yeah, he has a very defining style, and I did like him probably more when I was younger. When I was really into, I wasn't goth necessarily as a kid or as a teenager, but I was emo, I would say, and I was listening to a lot of emo music and like artists that took obviously inspiration from Tim Burton's aesthetic. So that was definitely a big thing for me in high school.
What Fall Out Boy song is it with the lyrics that go, "We'll be like Jack and
That's
Sally"?
Blink 182.
Oh, that's Blink 182.
Yeah.
Oh
You're
my
outing
God.
yourself as a normie. No.
A
Yeah, that's
pop
Blink
punk.
182. I Miss You. Classic song.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, dog, of course.
That's right.
Where
Oh.
are you? Yeah, it's a great
Yep.
song.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, his
On the
like
line.
Mike said, his influence on goth girls.
Yeah.
There's no one
Yeah.
else who's done it better.
Again,
God
we
bless.
all knew people
No,
who.
he's for the culture.
Yeah, I think we probably all knew people in high school who dressed in like exclusively Hot Topic clothing. Again, Nightmare Before Christmas was a huge thing. And yeah, so I was definitely a bigger fan when I was younger. I still appreciate, and I do like his early movies, especially like his 90s movies. I like Big Fish. Sweeney Todd I remember liking. I haven't seen it in a
But
long time
the
though.
new one that we're talking about today, this is
Yeah.
the first time you guys have returned into him for a while. Have you seen Big Eyes? Have you seen Dumbo? Some of these later kind of failures, quote unquote.
No, I
Not
haven't
really.
seen
Well, I
those.
guess we can include Wednesday in our
Which
late
we
Tim
did an
Burton.
episode on.
Yeah, and that's the last time I really have been engaged with any of his work was Wednesday. So
Yeah. And that's definitely Tim Burton through and through. But yeah, his recent output I've not been I haven't seen Dumbo. I haven't seen Big Eyes, Mrs. Peculiar's Children, or whatever.
Right.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah. If we did bonus episodes of this podcast, we've already scheduled them out, but I would beg you guys to watch Mrs. Peculiar's.
Right. Oh man.
Yeah. No, we're kind of sticking to the early hits for our other Tim Burton, our other Sep-Tim-Burton entries. Obviously, we've got Apes at the end, but we've got some 90s entries, so that'll be a lot of fun. And I think that's where he was strongest. Ed Wood, of course, is a great movie.
Right. And Mars Attacks,
Mars Attacks.
That's the kind of movie.
Maybe we'll talk about that later.
Sleepy Hollow fan.
Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those movies that was always on. Like, if I would put it on before I go to sleep, I just viewed Sleepy Hollow a lot. I don't know. It's just one of those ones.
I love it.
Yeah. I think his early 2000s output was pretty good because he had Sleepy Hollow, he had Big Fish, he had the Apes movie, which was not a hit, but he only started to fall off. He sort of
tied to a guy that we really have worked very hard to not bring up, despite the fact that we have done 5 Pirates films on this podcast.
Right.
His number one muse, his Leo to Scorsese, if you will.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Number one on his depth chart. But
and of course, he would always used to cast Helena Bonham Carter, his former partner in all these movies, and you will never guess who he's now in a relationship with, because she might have been in this movie that we're talking about today.
Well, we'll talk about his old girlfriend, Lisa Marie, when we do another episode coming up. But yes, he is someone who always makes sure to include his loves in parts that aren't extraneous, obviously are very important to the plot. We'll discuss that today. I'm jumping at the bit. I say, let's dive in. Let's head to the netherworld, summon some sandworms, and talk Beetlejuice. It's an iconic theme. It's maybe one of the best movie themes of all time.
It's very good.
I wanted to mention that.
Kind of hear The Simpsons in it.
Oh, wow.
Save it.
Let's bring it in.
We're back. We're talking now. We're talking Beetlejuice. We were talking a little bit about Danny Elfman, another strong collaborator for Tim Burton that we're going to be mentioning a lot during this month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I wanted to say too, Colin, I agree with you, because is the Beetlejuice theme song like one of, if not Danny Elfman's best song? Like, I know he's done a lot of good things. Simpsons intro obviously is a classic. He's Oingo Boingo, but I think
Batman.
Ooh, man, that's true.
I mean,
I don't know. It's up there.
He's a prolific composer, but like that Beetlejuice theme just fucking slaps,
Yep. And he's someone who has also like you can tell like a Danny Elfman score. Like there's like sometimes like a generic Hollywood sound, but he definitely has his
got
own
a sound
stuff.
For sure.
Yep.
And I wanted to say to you, Colin, I mentioned a Minecraft thing earlier. This was some years ago, but there was someone made a Minecraft roller coaster that's like the plot of the Beetlejuice movie. It's very impressive, and it was like 11 years old at this point, but it's always stuck with me because I saw it like a decade ago, and I was like, damn, that's so impressive. And it has a dubstep remix of the Beetlejuice theme that I still think kind of goes kind of hard,
Yeah,
so,
it always slaps.
It was of that time, yeah.
Right. Good old dubstep. But no, Beetlejuice, I mean, the original has stuck with me for a long time. And so I guess I was pretty excited to see this. I want to gauge your guys'
let's gauge the interest.
In this going in. And I know Colin has been like kind of down on it, obviously, but we'll talk about it.
On this podcast, I think we were doing a 20 episodes ago. I mean, when would the first trailer have dropped? And I think we were very much discussing the weird Deo trailer with the kid choir being very self-serious. In general, I think horror comedy is maybe the hardest two genres to blend, despite the fact that people are constantly saying they're so similar. And I just remember watching that trailer and being like, well, this movie's going to be funny, right?
Yeah. And I had zero buy-in at that time because I had not seen the original, and I was just like, well, here we go, legacy sequel, So I wasn't like super stoked, I wasn't really, at first. But then I did watch the original, which I liked, and I had a little bit more investment, and we'll kind of get in there. But it wasn't until I watched the original where I'm like, I could spend time, I guess, in this world, I guess.
Yeah. Jacob, going into it, how were you feeling?
I was excited. I rewatched the original as well. I was in the Beetlejuice mood, and the thing you got to understand about Beetlejuice is it's just about a guy who loves to do bits, and it's just a movie full of a guy doing bits, right? And that's kind of what.
That's pretty good.
You know, Mike, you were saying too, like having just seen the first one for the first time, your impressions of it and stuff, and that was something I noticed on rewatch too. Is like how little Beetlejuice is in it, and how late he shows up in the movie. It's like halfway through the movie by the time you first see him,
right?
Which is insane, right?
Yeah, and I think probably we could discuss broadly like what the first movie is leading up into the sequel. Please. But yeah, I was surprised too because I didn't know that it was just Gina Davis and oh my gosh,
Alec Baldwin.
Crazy. Alec Baldwin. Yeah. This couple that is in a house, they pass away in a car crash, and then they're haunting their own house, and then new people move in, and they want them to move out. You know, they're trying to scare Lydia Deetz and her family out.
So they're trying to scare the living humans away, so they hire a bioexorcist, which is a very funny term.
Yes.
A freelance bioexorcist, which is what Beetlejuice is. And that's where he kind of comes into the movie. But there's this whole underworld, like death beyond bureaucracy thing going on in the movie.
Yeah, a lot of the charm is with that take a number. There's like a lot of like one-off sight gags with the people and how they died and stuff. That's very cool and like fun, like good.
And also, it's just kind of a movie about how Tim Burton hated the like baby boomer yuppies in the 80s. Even though Tim Burton himself, age-wise, is a baby boomer, I would say he identifies culturally more with Gen X, with Winona Ryder's generation.
A very interesting guy to do just the smallest bit of biography of this guy we're going to spend a month on.
Yeah.
Born in Burbank, California, grew up in a very sunny suburb with happy people and always felt strange and weird. And obviously that is his oeuvre, right? He was a CalArts grad. He was an artist. He was going to be a drawer, a painter. He worked on Black Cauldron. And the thing that I find fascinating about him, and this was pointed out by the Blank Check podcast recently because they're covering David Lynch films, is to look at those two people separately. David Lynch is somebody who was like, I kind of have that same aesthetic. I was born in the suburbs. I feel like a weirdo. But he's somebody who took control of his own destiny in his art to say, like, I will write Eraserhead. I will do everything for Eraserhead. Whereas I think the interesting thing about Tim Burton is he goes, I'm the idea guy. I will hire someone to come up with a cohesive screenplay for Edward Scissorhands and dilute my aesthetic through it. And I think that he very smartly is someone as an artist who's always just inputting, like Mike, when you say that like the weird corniness of the afterlife and the imagery and all that stuff, it's like, it's pure Tim Burton. Like it is, but he, again, it's like put in a way where it's like, oh, this is a movie script that works and an audience can watch this and digest it.
Yeah, and again, he didn't write the script for Beetlejuice.
He came up with the idea.
Right. He works with other collaborators and stuff, but he has obviously a vision. But yeah, I think that's what's so interesting to me about the first one is just the sort of dynamic between obviously Lydia Deetz, Winona Ryder, and her parents or her stepmom and dad, and the difference in their generation and their sort of cultural values. And I think Winona Ryder with Lydia is sort of the Tim Burton character that he relates with, right? Yeah. So it's interesting to see now in this sequel where, you know, the Gen X has now become the older generation and their Gen Z kids have a disconnect with them. And so that's kind of what I think this new movie is about with Jenna Ortega and Winona Ryder.
I could see the little bit of that parallel, but yeah, I like there was a period in that era when it was just like the stuffy yuppies, like they'd had it in Christmas Vacation and stuff, you know, like the rich people living next door, you know, that was like something to be made fun of.
Catherine O'Hara, what a great embodiment of that whole generation, the Catherine O'Hara character. And I love her like weird sculpture, like she wants to be an artist, but her art is like all insane and everyone just kind of makes fun of it.
Right.
And to see what she's doing now in the
money, and you know, and obsessed with being
image
popular
and image social status,
and married to noted pedophile Jeffrey Jones, who plays like
a
banker and money man in that first film. I mean, again, he's making fun of these people. You guys, young listeners have to understand what Ronald Reagan did to the brains of these people because they were
Right.
so obsessed with like overturning everything he stood for.
Yeah, and Gen X was the counterculture generation of that time, saying we're not going to buy into your, whatever. So Tim Burton, again, he obviously identified with Gen X. He's a little bit older than Gen X, but yeah, and I think there's the through line there with the sequel, which we'll talk about.
Let's stay on this first one here because Mike, first time viewer, you're watching with fresh eyes. It holds up. You liked it.
I found it cozy. Like, I think it's fun, and I liked that it wasn't the Beetlejuice show. Like, I was enjoying the story of Lydia meeting the ghosts and like them trying to figure out, a solution. And oh, now my parents think you're like gonna make them money. Like, we're gonna exploit like that stuff was all fun and unexpected.
Twist is that
yeah,
they're when the parents become aware of ghosts, they're not scared at all. They're just thinking, how can we use this to get money or get fame, basically, because that's what they're seeking.
And I'm also enjoying, like, they have to get the handbook of the dead. Like, they're fumbling their way through the afterlife. Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. They're like, what do we do? And like trying to figure out the bureaucracy. And we only get 3 of these things, and just all that mechanics of how the underworld worked. I thought was fun and interesting. Yeah,
that was cool. And I also think it's funny how sort of they don't like how indifferent they are to being dead. They really don't care that they're dead. They just want these people out of their house.
Yeah, which they love.
It's pretty funny. I think it holds up pretty well. It's not like a 5-star movie to me, but it's like in Letterboxd terms, it's a 4-star movie for me. So
I think it's got a great aesthetic, great soundtrack. I think Winona Ryder is, really good as the weird photograph girl, and I like that she's like, I took photos of the new fire department so you can make a model of it because you can't leave the house. Like, I like that little kind of stuff. But I don't know.
And Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis.
Alec Baldwin at a level of handsome that you truly can't understand. You see him like now and you're like, oh yeah, he's a good looking guy. You watch Beetlejuice, you're like, no, he was one of the best looking men to ever exist.
That's the thing. He's older now. He's a little, he gained a little weight, but he still looks very handsome as an older man. But yeah, as a younger man, he was obviously... That's why he was a movie star.
Yeah, great hair in this too. Gina Davis is very good too, just like completely befuddled. There's great characters.
They don't care so much that they're dead. They just want these people out of their house.
Right.
They care really about their house. And then Catherine O'Hara changing everything about the house and remodeling it. They're just like, this lady has terrible taste. It's just very funny.
I like Otho too. That character is very fun.
Otho, yeah. Glenn Shaddix, who sadly passed away a few years ago. But yeah, it's a classic Burton-esque film.
And again, Michael Keaton comes in late, and he has a whole thing which is I didn't enjoy. Like, oh, I'm gonna marry Lydia Deetz. Like, that's like doesn't age great. He's like 400, she's like 16. Then also Jeffrey Jones. That's a whole weird situation. The vibe of the plot, unfortunately, is weird.
I think, the Beetlejuice character, obviously, he's supposed to be creepy and perverted and handsy, basically. And
he's like 80s handsy. Well,
but he's...
Right, yeah.
But he's not exactly the protagonist, right? He's sort of a...
No. He's a villain.
But he's dirty and handsy in an 80s way. Where, Jacob, I understand you saying you have nightmares because it's scary imagery, but there's no blood, there's no gore. It's not that kind of film.
Yeah.
It's a movie that asks young people to start considering death, which is a thing that we are all going to face one day. These 80s movies that, like, used to kind of be for kid grown-ups. Does that make sense?
No, like, there's a whole era of stuff like The Labyrinth or...
Yes.
Dark Crystal, like stuff that is heavier.
That we really don't have anymore because now it's like everything has to have Marvel movie level jokes and like
it has to be self-referential.
Everybody,
I think this thing is like Beetlejuice isn't a scary movie if you're an adult or even an older kid, but as a younger kid, it does have some scary imagery that I was
Halloween movie.
Yeah.
So when we were going into Beetlejuice, excuse me, I was worried with the trailer. He's back. I should have.
Oh, now save that for later.
Exactly. Somebody called me. I was worried it was going to be like the Beetlejuice show. Like he was going to be in the entire movie. That's what I was most scared of. Because like he works in the small doses. Like everything around him is why I like the movie. He's a good seasoning on top of it. But he shouldn't be the whole movie.
Here's the thing. The first film, Michael Keaton was an actor. He'd done a couple soaps. He'd done Ron Howard's first movie called Night Shift. He was primarily a stand-up comedian. Now, guys, the Michael Keaton we know now, Academy Award winner, has done Birdman, has done Spotlight, has done some of like the highest quote-unquote art films. He was a mega star post this for a little movie called Batman, which you might hear us talk about again soon.
Yep.
I understand the concerns, Mark, that he would then be spotlighted, to say spotlight again, to take over the movie. But I think very smartly they said, no, that's not within the spirit of this film.
I think they realized that, and I did see an interview with Michael Keaton before seeing this movie where he's talking about it. And he's like, yeah, Beetlejuice can't be the main character. He has to be this chaotic entity that comes in and just like causes chaos everywhere. But he is better in that.
Be the main character of a movie called Beetlejuice. I agree. Yes.
Yeah,
that's what's weird. Yeah, it is called Beetlejuice, but I mean, what else would you call it? Really, like dead ghost house people?
The original pitch was House Ghost, which I'm sure is why the parody in Lydia's TV show is called House Ghost. And then Tim Burton hated that so much he rebutted with, "I want to call it Scared Sheetless." And they were like, "You cannot call it that."
Good.
That's great. That's great.
That's a good tagline. You'll be scared sheetless at least. But I also like the weird split, just fun fact, with the spelling of Beetlejuice in the movie and then the title of the movie, because he's like named after the star. Right. Beetlejuice.
From the Bible.
But then, the producers are like, no one's going to be able to pronounce that. So they just changed the spelling. So in the movie, it's spelled different than the title of the movie, which I found fascinating.
Beetlejuice. Mr. Juice.
Juice.
As Willem Dafoe calls him.
I mean, probably the best moment in that original film is when he's using charades to get her to say his name, and he points, and it looks, and there's a Beetlejuice.
Breakfast?
And Colin,
Beetle breakfast?
Beetle, orange drink?
Orange Beetle?
Colin, you were saying, you told a little story the other past episode about Michael Keaton and how when Tim Burton signed on to do Batman, he's like, okay, I've got a great actor in mind for Batman.
The number one guy that I want to play Batman. And the Hollywood Warner Brothers executive said, oh my God, we're so happy you said this. Alec Baldwin, we agree. Handsome, charismatic, screen presence. He said, let me stop you right there. Michael Keaton.
And if you see Beetlejuice, it is funny, very funny to imagine Tim Burton looking at Michael Keaton in this movie and thinking, that's my Bruce Wayne right there.
Oh man,
weirdo. Yes,
because it's such a different role that it's kind of amazing that Michael Keaton did these movies like back to back, basically, like 1988, 1989.
And became a star. I mean, became one of the biggest stars of the late 80s to early 90s, and then kind of decided he didn't want to do that, started turning down a ton of work, and really had a resurgence really in the past 8-9 years, really, right?
Yeah. I mean, with
the Spider-Man
Birdman, Spider-Man, of course. Yeah,
Birdman was a big thing for him. A lot of Oscar buzz and stuff, and I like Birdman a lot. That's a good movie. And
we also say he's decided that he wants to go by his real name now. His real name is Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. He wants to be credited as Michael Keaton Douglas now. And obviously, he changed it because there's another actor named Michael Douglas, of course. And union rules, guild rules. You can't, and that's why Emma Stone is named Emma Stone when her real name is Emily Stone.
Right.
Remember, I talked about David Tennant, Doctor Who, whose real name was David McDonald.
Michael J. Fox, real middle name has no J in it. He picked it out of a book because there was already another Michael Fox.
Keaton did that too. He just kind of looked at randomly. He's like, oh, that sounds good enough. Keaton it is.
Yeah. And when I was younger, I always thought that he was related to Diane Keaton, and I was very confused by that. So,
same.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Classic. That's funny. I think, there's resurgence with, my brain is melting because of the heat, Birdman and stuff. Like, I don't know why you change your name now. Like, you've built this whole career, you're late in your career, sorry. But like,
Well,
just
now he wants to do it because now he wants to be recognized by his own name. And he's,
Yeah.
I don't know why he waited so long. He could have done it 20 years ago, but yeah.
yeah. But you do you, King.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
He'll always be Michael Keaton to me, but he can be Michael Keaton Douglas too at the same
Probably. I probably won't call
Michael
him Michael
Keaton
Douglas.
Douglas.
I just remember him winning
No.
the Golden Globe for Birdman. He went up and said, "My name's Michael Douglas. I'm a kid from Pittsburgh." And I was like, "What? Your name is what?"
time. Right. I like that Hollywood
Yeah.
applies the Highlander rule, though. There can only be one. You
can only
gotta
be
change
one.
your name. That's right.
That's right. But I also want to say before we move on to the sequel, real quick,
For sure.
Michael Keaton's great. I also want to talk a second about Winona Ryder because this movie kind of made her into a star as well, or is her breakout role.
She was a child actress, obviously, but this was the transition, Jacob. This was the moment where she's becoming a teenager, she's becoming a young adult, and they're like, "Oh, you can carry a film."
Yeah, and then obviously she was a big star in the '90s. Got in some trouble for shoplifting. Had sort of a career resurgence later on.
Stranger Things, right? Kind of a similar
Stranger
timeline
Things.
almost with Michael Keaton. Like a little bit of
Right.
peak, chill out, and then
Spock's
coming
mom.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember her in her great role as Spock's
course.
mom.
Wow.
God,
I forgot
that's
that
so
was
great.
real. That's great. Rest in peace, Spock's mom.
But
I
I
love
always liked
her.
Winona
Yeah,
Ryder.
you guys like her.
Yeah, I
she's
like Winona
great.
Ryder. Yeah, she's fun. I think she's great in Stranger Things. One of the best, like, characters in that whole show. She's
Yeah.
She kind of, her and Keanu were in that Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it kind of ended
Right.
both their careers as just a fit of like they were both so miscast, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember Keanu
Yeah.
especially where it just became like, oh, Keanu can't act. He can't act. But really it was just, wasn't the role for him. He can definitely act, but it's got to be, he's got a certain type of role that Keanu does that he doesn't have a ton of range, I think. Winona might be kind of the same way where she definitely has a type. I mean, she can do different things like Stranger Things. Her character's very different than other roles that she's done, but she kind of has her type.
Yeah, and we don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. You do stay in your lane, and you'll do a good job. Like you don't always have to be that well rounded, right? So I think when she and Keanu find the right roles, and this Lydia Deetz is the right role for her, especially at that age. She's very good in it, and yeah.
And I think
myself in Strange and Weird.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was kind of her personality as a person. And Tim Burton took a lot of that. Like even I was watching a lot of press stuff before this movie in like interviews and stuff. And she's talking about how when she was cast in that role, like she was wearing the Lydia Deetz hairstyle with like the spiked bangs and stuff
already. Wow.
Yeah, so she just had that aesthetic already in her personal life.
You said the Gen X,
Iconic.
Jacob, of her. She's maybe in the most iconic Gen X movie ever, Reality Bites, directed by Ben Stiller. I mean, that really kind of cemented her as that, and I agree with you. I think that's what Tim Burton is drawn to.
Yeah, definitely. And Gen X, they're kind of the generation that rebelled against stuff, but didn't really know what they were sort of rebelling against or rebelling for.
Rebellious everything, accomplished nothing.
And then basically became their parents by the time they were 50, which is they're sort of the new baby boomers now in the year 2024. So maybe that's kind of what Beetlejuice is about. But
well, I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a fact. You can say it, but
well, just about on the subject of Winona. Like I said, I was watching a lot of press interviews and stuff with her and Jenna Ortega, and it just seems like she was so happy to make this movie with Jenna Ortega. Like they have this like connection where Winona Ryder's like this major cinephile, and she famously like just watches all these movies and stuff, and just knows all these, lesser known directors and things like that. I watched her Criterion Closet video. I don't know if you guys ever see those.
I've
Love those.
Yeah. Love the Criterion Closet, and she was just picking out these really cool choices and stuff. And she said that she really bonded with Jenna Ortega over this love of film and stuff. And she said before that she's disappointed in a lot of Gen Z actors that they don't have like a general love of film outside of like their job. And it seems like some shade at some Stranger Things actors, maybe
specifically 11. Bobby Brown, who has said
famously
she does not
like movies.
Yes,
she watches TikTok instead.
We brought up in our Wednesday episode, Jacob, I think you pulled out the quote of Jenna Ortega saying, well, Tim Burton said, do Droog face from Stanley Kubrick. And I understood immediately that it was a Clockwork Orange reference. And you're like, yes, she is very interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so of course Winona would probably sees Jenna Ortega as like her younger self in a strange way. Like they have a lot in common. So I think I'm very just happy that she was able to bond with Jenna Ortega on the shoot and stuff. So it seems like they had a good time.
And that's the question I wanted to ask, is basically like, was this born out of working on Wednesday and Tim Burton's like, wait a minute, we have the second coming of Lydia Deetz. Like we must do a Beetlejuice. 100%. Yeah.
It's the same writers Wednesday. I mean, that's...
And it's, and I think I was watching another interview with Jenna Ortega and she's like, yeah, Tim Burton on the set of Wednesday gave me the script to Beetlejuice Beetlejuice and was like, I have you in mind to play Lydia Deetz's daughter. Just read the script. And I guess she just loved the script, so she agreed to do it. But clearly Tim Burton has found another young woman that can embody his aesthetic and style, as Helena Bonham Carter did back in the day, and Winona Ryder and so on. So, yeah.
But it's like, no Jenna Ortega, though. This movie doesn't happen. Yeah, please don't do that.
The thing is, I mean, Mike, that's such a great point of, we were talking about the end of his career. Mm-hmm. The last film he did was Dumbo. He said he never wants to work for Disney again. He himself felt like he was an animal trapped in a circus. He might be done. He gets a little juice from Netflix with Wednesday, and people say, Tim is back. And it just so happens that he's working with one of the hottest stars currently working today. And I don't mean just aesthetically. I mean the fact that she has buzz, she has charisma, she's a huge following. I think all that perfect storm came together to get him this green light.
Yeah. Because nobody was asking for it. We were saying we liked the first one well enough, but like 34 years later or whatever, like it's a perfect storm.
It's that thing of like, you almost wonder if it's like the Wachowskis with the Matrix of like, but also if I don't do it, somebody else is going to. There's always that fear that WB especially will dig up dead IP and resurrect it, from the grave, from beyond.
Yeah.
Well, I know he was trying to get a sequel made for like 20 years back in the 2000s and the 2010s, but it was sort of maybe it just didn't happen for a number of different reasons over time. So it's definitely a work that was off and on for a while that he was planning to do, but probably wasn't planning to wait for so long to do it. But I think the stars just aligned.
For hire.
Yeah.
He did Dumbo.
But he doesn't give a fuck about Dumbo. He doesn't give a fuck about Alice in
That's
Wonderland.
what I mean, yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck about Sweeney Todd. I think at the end of the day, those were paying for a very nice house and eventually a very nice divorce from Helena Bonham Carter.
Right.
And think shit is expensive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think with this movie, the stars just aligned because you had Jenna Ortega, the name of her, it was adding obviously marketability. Then you have Michael Keaton. He just came back and did Batman. Now he's coming back to do Beetlejuice. So he's doing all these late career.
Oh, was he Batman again? I don't think that ever happened.
We're getting a lot of Keaton in our September too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he did come back as Batman in a movie called The Flash. You might have heard of it.
Doesn't exist.
So. Certainly not a film called Batgirl.
No.
Man.
That movie will never be seen, sadly. But Michael Keaton, I think for a long time probably was like, I'm not going to fucking come back and be Beetlejuice unless they pay me a lot of money.
Yeah. I've won Academy Awards.
And then they probably said, well, here's a lot of money. And he said, the juice is loose, baby.
The juice loves the greenbacks.
Yeah, that's a good one. Nice. You're getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just the right time. I mean, you had Catherine O'Hara come back, obviously.
A huge career resurgence.
Schitt's Creek.
She's won multiple lead actress Emmys now. I mean, it really is like Stranger Things is the biggest show on Netflix. Like, you can see every domino laid out.
80s nostalgia.
We gotta fucking do this thing.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. It's all there. And again, rising star, character's name Astrid, it's good stuff. But that gives you the Gen Z market. And there was a large amount of people who went to see Beetlejuice 2, that hadn't even seen the first one. They're just like, oh, there's buzz about this and I'm going to go.
Right.
And so
now that's interesting to me because
I
can't imagine what this movie would be like if you haven't seen the first one. Because it is like a direct sequel. And I guess we can get into it, right?
Let's do that.
Let's hop in there.
Let's get first reactions here on Beetlejuice, what we thought of the new movie in theaters now, the current Tim Burton release in 2024. We're here in September. We're talking Sep-Tim-Burton.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk now about his new film, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was the best movie
Oh, no.
of the year, but
There he is. Oh, God. Hey, Jude. How are you?
I found a new echolalia.
Home.
Yeah, there we go. Some of the mechanics of that don't make a ton of sense to me, but whatever.
Oh, you don't want to start hearing me talk about the logic of this movie.
Fair.
Well, I mean, you can say, the original didn't have airtight logic either, but let's talk about it. First reactions. Colin, I know from comments you made, you seem pretty negative about it.
I think this is one of the worst movies this year, currently in theaters. Big blockbuster. I think it's mindless. I think it's idiotic. I think every scene is random. You off the pod said, Jacob, that the thing about Beetlejuice is he loves doing bits.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is just a collection of bits.
Well, guess what? That's why I loved it.
Wow.
Really liked this movie. I thought it was a hoot.
Really loved this movie.
I knew you didn't like it going in, and I was watching it like, why doesn't Colin like this movie? I don't understand. I think it's a great sequel to the first movie. I think as a legacy sequel, this is how you do it. This is one of the best legacy sequels I've ever seen.
I can't wait to see your letterboxes and compare them.
The weird snakes that are shooting out of my face as I hear you.
I didn't understand why you didn't like it. And here's the thing, I'll say something. This might be a hot take. As much as I like the first Beetlejuice movie, and I do like it, I think this might be a better movie than the first one.
Wow.
I think might be a better movie.
Okay.
And you
post
that clip of Michael Keaton.
Yes,
I agree with
Michael Keaton's saying that he thinks this is a better movie, which I told you guys is the first sign of dementia taking over his mind. But Mike, where are you at first reaction-wise?
Well, first of all, I'm loving the polarity.
Yeah.
I'm somewhere in the middle. There's things that I found charming and other things that I didn't care for at all. Some of it's like, I like the general plot idea, but I don't think everything was executed. But there are moments when I was having fun, and you guys know I love Beetlejuice, obviously. So I went and saw this in 4DX. I paid out the big bucks.
Wow.
Okay, fucking talk about that for a minute. What was happening? You were being. I mean, there is a lot. It is like a chaotic film.
Basically, it was the worst 4DX experience ever. The most pointless. But they would be like, oh, when she crashes her bike, great. And then we're just sitting still or the camera will pan up and your seat will slowly just tilt.
It's in 4DX, that
so
means
lame.
it's 3D as well, right? In addition to, it's 3D plus.
No.
It's just the movement and
they had air and water and stuff.
Yeah. And of course, the only 4DX film I've ever seen is the first Scream remake with Jenna Ortega. So I do like this honoring we're doing.
You guys are seeing weird
the Ortega 4DX experience. Well, my air conditioner is broke, as I said. And I'm like, I need to go to a cinema because I'm melting. And I said, I'll just buy into the bit and do 4DX. But,
No, that was, I didn't go see it in 4DX, but I had a similar experience where I saw it last night. Went to the theater, and it was just so cool in the theater. The air felt great. It was blowing on me. I was having a great time.
My brain is.
I was laughing.
What did you like about the movie? Well, I was in the darkness and out of the sun.
Hey, that's got to count for something.
That's what Lydia Deetz would like about it too. I was away from the sun.
I was at what did she say? A Who marathon? I was at a Mark Melano marathon, and it was Baby Stabber 5000 was airing, and my water broke.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact line, but yes. I will say this: the person next to me fell asleep in 4DX. That's hard to do. So I don't think he was very engaged, but I think I liked it more than him.
I will say my theater packed Sunday night, 9:30 p.m.
It was crowded, yeah.
Very crowded. People were laughing. People were having a great time, including me. I thought, like you said, it's a movie full of bits. I love how gross it is. There's a million different plot threads. The plot is a bit of a mess where it just kind of all over the place. But I think it had more of a plot than the first movie in that, the whole mother-daughter, Jenna Ortega, Winona Ryder thing.
That's insane.
I liked it.
That's okay. It's a return to form of there is practical Tim Burton
Yes,
stuff.
love
That was
the practical
big selling
effects.
point. Yes.
Yeah, the hand painted sets and things like that. Like it looks so good, and it's so nice to see a movie that just wasn't just full of CG effects everywhere. I'm sure there were some CG, but it was
a ton of CG in it still.
yeah, but it wasn't like super obvious.
It still had like that Tim Burton look. It felt tactile. Like it's
Yeah, you got
Crooked
like
Hallway,
the
all that,
stop
the
motion
classics.
sandworms and things. Like I don't
I
know.
like that.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Well, let me say this. I was watching, and I keep thinking about the first act of Pirates of the Caribbean and how it's the perfect setup of character, goal, right? 15 minutes, we know who they are, what they want to do. That's like screenwriting, right? With 15, 20 pages, get that done. And Beetlejuice 1, within 20 minutes, we know, okay, they're dead, there's new people in their house, and they want them out. And I'm like, all right, 20 minutes, let's roll. This takes forever to know what it's kind of just meandering. I don't know what anybody's goals are for a very long time.
There are none of those scenes. In the Astrid stuff, you don't know her as a character. I'm at school, kids tease me. Oh, everybody's here. Come on, we got to go to the thing. It's like, okay, we're not spending any time with this people. Or the Jeffrey Jones pedophile is dead. The plot point of this entire film, Mr. Deetz, has passed away. That's what's bringing this entire family together. The Catherine O'Hara scene, she's explaining that. We're just undercutting any emotion. And again, I said the delicate balance between comedy and horror. Obviously, it's trying to be very funny there with the shark and all this stuff going on.
Yeah,
but
that scene really worked for me. I thought it was pretty funny.
There are 15 other moments like that moment in this film where you're like, oh, finally, this is the heart of the story that we're going to get to, where it's like, nope, we've got to move, just get past it and go to the next bit, where I'm like, that's not what the last film had. I agree with Mike, where it just had, I can't believe you say this had a stronger story than the first. That's insane.
Yeah, no, because the heart of the story is, and it's not just Winona and Jenna Ortega. It's the three generations, Catherine O'Hara, the three generations of women, all with different sort of outlooks on life. And I really like the Catherine O'Hara, Winona Ryder stuff in this movie because it is drawing on the first movie and how their relationship has changed over the years. And I don't know. Yeah, it was the right move to kill off Jeffrey Jones, obviously.
You shouldn't have had him walking around half shark bit or done a CG claymation thing either. Just he's dead. We don't need to be reminded of this guy.
We gotta get this guy out of this, and they're like, okay, here's how we'll do that. We'll have him featured heavily throughout the entire movie.
I don't like that.
Insane.
Well, yeah,
I don't understand why that doesn't work.
Just we don't need to be reminded of him.
Of a sex predator who was busted with terabytes of child pornography.
Right.
Regardless, he is an issue you have to work past in this film.
No, I think this was the right way to do it. His death is central to the whole plot.
But he can just be dead. I don't need the claymation and him wandering around. He's just fucking gone. I want to re-edit the movie to where all that's gone. Anyway.
You got to separate the actor from the character.
I understand that is core to the plot. Now, that's why they come together for the funeral. But I would have left it at just the funeral. And I'll see the floor.
It's done.
Yeah.
What's funny now about Jeffrey Jones, the actor, obviously we talked about got in big trouble with the CP. I ain't talking Chris Paul.
No.
But I didn't realize. So when this, the thing I know him most from is other than Beetlejuice and like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and stuff
Sleepy
like
Hollow.
that. Sleepy Hollow. He was in the show Deadwood, which is a HBO show,
course. Yeah.
A Western show that I really like. I looked up. This is so strange. He got in trouble in the early 2000s before Deadwood aired, like a few years before Deadwood aired. So I don't know why he was even in that show.
Comes back for the movie.
Yeah. And he's not working much these days, but he's for some reason Deadwood. They're like, yeah, let's get this guy. So that kind of blew my mind. I was like, why is he? But anyway.
Yeah, that timeline is crazy. But I would have, I would have cut it all to say he's dead and move on. But they were doing bits, and all right,
I didn't mind it because it's like his death again brings the three women together, brings these different family members that are not seeing eye to eye together, and like the him being a half bitten by a shark walking around in the underworld and stuff was it was whatever, but I would have cut the claymation scene or whatever that was, that definitely, I agree with you, was
Fair.
not necessary.
Insane.
But when the movie is
But I
working
like
for
the-
me, I like
Yeah.
the relationship between the three lead women. Like, I'm
And I
with
do
you
like
there.
the
There's
scene
moments that
where
works.
Catherine O'Hara is explaining how he died, and Winona Ryder just keeps trying to guess how he died. Just like, no, oh, so he drowned. No, he didn't drown. There was a shark came, and I thought that
Oh,
was
right.
that was very
Oh,
funny.
he
to me.
was. Yes, he loved to watch the mating rituals of that specific word. Yes, he died watching birds fuck. You're right, dear.
Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
But all that would work, yeah, just as dialogue without visual aid, right? But
yeah.
anyway, so
But
the conceit is that's why we're together. Astrid's like, I don't want to be here. Winona Ryder's dealing with clearly some trauma that she's carrying. She has a new shithead boyfriend, you know.
yeah. So let's talk about this. So Lydia, Winona Ryder, is now has a show where she's sort of a medium, like a TV medium, where she's pretending to talk to ghosts or something. Obviously, she can see ghosts in real life since the Beetlejuice incident,
Correct.
or the Maitlands. Obviously, she could see
Funny.
the Maitlands.
Funny idea. This is
Mhm.
one of those things where you're like, Tim Burton has never watched an episode of Ghost Hunters in his life. He's essentially has her cosplaying Elvira. She's, a sexy goth princess queen.
Yep.
That's what she was.
Right.
in the
Well,
last
she's got her
film.
same aesthetic that she had when she was
Except
younger.
she's live hosting a clip show where she interviews people. Why do they have an audience for what's essentially Zach Bagans, style? It
Right. Well,
makes
she's on a
no
set that's like
sense.
looks like the attic of their house, and she's
Mhm.
she has guests on, and then she shows a clip of her doing like a Zach Bagans Ghost Adventures thing. A little strange, but then you have Justin Theroux, her manager / boyfriend. She has like a pill addiction.
Plot thread
I
number
guess.
one that goes nowhere, that we're
yeah.
again undercutting constantly with humor, is Lydia is addicted to pills. You're like, oh my
Right.
god.
Right.
Well, she has some trauma that stems from her, experiences with Beetlejuice that definitely left her scarred, and now she's seeing Beetlejuice everywhere, and so she uses the pills to cope with this trauma, right?
to try to suppress her ghost seeing, especially. Yeah. So
And the whole Justin Theroux character is sort of Tim Burton, sort of gently satirizing like self-help psychology terminal, like he's very into like psychiatrist speak kind of thing, right?
Right. I was sad to see that Lydia is not happy. They're in a healthy relationship. Like, I get that that's what she works through in this movie, but I was like, dang, Lydia's got it rough. That was
Yeah,
that's what we're working on. But yeah, I was like, man, I'm sorry that you got traumatized by
that's why she's
Beetlejuice.
got to get over it, and she's got to dump this hanger on boyfriend character.
Mhm.
And that's why her and her daughter, they don't see eye to eye. Her daughter is sort of embarrassed that her mom is like a celebrity for
She's a
sort of
skeptic.
became
She doesn't
famous
believe
of
it.
seeing ghosts and things like that. Yeah, which is interesting because Jenna Ortega, you would think that she's sort of playing against type where she doesn't believe this occult stuff. But then you kind of find out more about her dad, who died years ago, and they were into all this like old school horror movies and stuff.
She's obsessed with it. She is Tim Burton. She is the Tim Burton stand-in in this film, obviously.
But she's embarrassed by her mom, who's famous for being
she doesn't
like
believe in it.
Yeah.
Which on paper I get mechanically. It's like, you say you can see ghosts, but you can't see my dad. Fuck off. Like, whatever. But like execution's a little off to me.
He later also says, I check on you guys all the time. I know you can't see me.
How do you know?
Why can't Lydia see him?
Well, that's the thing, is Lydia can't see every ghost, maybe if they don't want to be seen.
She sees a certain ghost in this movie that's a big plot point, the teenage kid, but we'll get to all that stuff.
Right.
She can see any ghost.
Yeah,
I
it's
believe
like,
ghosts can make themselves visible or invisible to you, depending on if they want you to see you.
fair. I think there's a world where she doesn't want to because she can't face that loss, and like she's like she has like a Peter blocker happening situation.
Even though she later admits our relationship was over way before he died, and we really never get any closure on that.
Still traumatic. I mean, if your former partner who you had a kid with died, even though you were an ex,
mysteriously.
right, but obviously assumed dead. They never found him. So So of course that would affect you even if you're not, even if you weren't in a relationship at that time, I think.
Yeah.
And then we have the Catherine O'Hara character, of course, who
she's
is
trying
now,
to commodify grief. She's a famous artist. I think this stuff was fun.
This was cool because in the first movie,
her character,
Mm-hmm.
and in the first movie, she's trying to become a famous artist, but she obviously obsessed with status and fame and that stuff. And then we find out that she did become famous to a certain degree, and she's moved on to multimedia experiences. Sculpture was too limiting, right?
Right.
And so I kind of like, it's kind of mocking sort of modern art and things like that a little bit as well.
I mean, Astrid's school, they go to the Delia Deetz Art Center. I mean, she is world famous. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny that, it's such a image obsessed person who maybe doesn't have a lot of depth behind her art would become so famous in this society.
Which is, commentary too. But yeah, her kind of the commentary they're making with her of like, all right, we need to make my grief a public display to monetize it. Like that kind of thing is an interesting thread to pull on.
Right. Yeah. So it's these three generations of women who come together. They have the funeral for her dad. And of course, this is where they play Deo, the choral version at the funeral. Now, when I saw this in trailer, I didn't understand it, but I think in context, it does actually make sense. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
See Colin shaking his head. But because that's something that Delia Deetz would do as sort of a performance art thing, as a reference to, when they all were possessed and sang Deo back in the day around the dinner table.
This thing that they all swear they never want to think about ever again, she would devote most of his funeral to like a key moment of.
It would be as part of make it about her.
Right.
Just being a cool tie-in to that last movie. Again, this is where I'm like, this is a good Lego sequel? That's insane to me.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. And they go back to the house, right? And she's involving the house in this whole morning performance art that she's
going to get rid of it. They kind of reveal, but
they bring a real estate person.
Wake, and then we find out that we're 2 days away from Halloween. It used to be Astrid's favorite holiday. It's of course Lydia's favorite holiday.
Oh yeah, and then her shitty boyfriend is like, "We should get married on Halloween," and it's like kind of pressures her into it. And
the witching hour.
So that becomes, I guess, our ticking clock too. It's like, okay, 2 days to Halloween.
Yeah, she sort of agrees to marry him under duress, but then we have this whole Jenna Ortega plot where she's in this town where her mom grew up, and she's like, well, I don't know what to do here. Goes on a little bike ride.
With the same bike from Beetlejuice 1.
Right.
But that makes sense because it's at the house.
Yeah.
But she meets a kid.
Cute local guy. They kind of hit it off. And this is probably my favorite plot line because the twist
talking about.
The twist really got me. I was like,
you didn't see this coming?
No. I was like, that got me. I was
like, conversation they have 10 seconds before she meets this guy as well. Remember, my powers manifested right when I was your age. Okay.
Oh, geez, you're right.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. I don't know.
I it kind of worked for me too. Once it happened, I was like, God dang, because I was thinking, where did he get the book? And then I was like, once they reveal it, I was like, of course, these.
Right.
He didn't get it from their house.
I thought you just got it at a garage sale or something, but like they sold the one.
That's what he said, but I should have been smarter.
But then, I just thought he was just some local townie. And then the reveal of, so they hit it off, right? They have this little cute date or whatever, and then they kiss, and then they start levitating off the ground. And I was like, oh shit, he's a ghost.
They could have played that Dua Lipa levitating.
Not in the least. I didn't like this actor. I did not like this story. This, to me, is the real Tim Burton self-insert. This little poser kid.
Maybe it's a subconscious thing, for Tim Burton.
But he's trying to pull a Beetlejuice, too, where it's like, I'm going to manipulate Astrid and be able to switch places. Yeah. He doesn't tell her that, though.
The double twist is that not only is he a ghost, but he's a bad guy, and he's trying to steal her soul to become a human.
Yeah, he murdered his parents.
Right. I don't know.
So that becomes, that becomes our inciting action, but it happens in the third act. Like we're like, oh
Well,
shit, she's
yeah.
taken
It
to the
also gets
underworld
wrapped up in
way
about 2
late.
seconds. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
here's the
yeah.
thing. I do agree that
The momentum
the plot
comes
is
way
a
too
little
late.
all over place where it's
Well,
like they solve this problem. He gets dropped into hell or whatever, and then we never hear
There's
from him
a
again.
whole
It becomes
movie.
this whole wedding thing.
Can we hit pause real quick?
Yes.
We have not talked about how this movie starts. The way
Oh my
this movie
God.
starts is we are introduced to Beetlejuice's ex-wife,
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci, who is
Yes,
like what is going on here?
current
Yeah,
lover of Tim Burton.
Her and Danny
Bellucci.
DeVito.
I didn't expect
man,
Danny
the
DeVito.
Penguin.
I am
Danny
blown
DeVito,
away by
love him.
this.
Here's the thing: Danny DeVito and Willem Dafoe in this movie. How can I not like it?
Yeah, right. No, this Monica Bellucci thing. Can we take a minute here because
Please.
I feel like she does functionally almost nothing for the plot, but she
What
is like
screenplay was this left over from, Mike?
Well,
I
this
don't
okay.
know, yeah, because she's by herself all the time. She's never in scenes with the main
She has
cast.
no end. Well, she
until the
wants
end.
to
But she's
get revenge
no,
on
she does have
Beetlejuice,
it.
but it's not like that brings about the end of the world or anything. At the end of the movie, she escapes the netherworld just walking into the church is like, all right, I'm here. And you're like, how did you do that? Like, there's no
Yeah.
explanation.
She's trying to find Beetlejuice this whole time. She's chasing after him, basically, keeps missing him, and then by
Right.
the end, the third act, it all comes together. But I agree, her scenes a little extraneous to the rest of the movie. My
Mhm.
theory is that Tim Burton obviously loves to put his romantic
Yeah.
partner in his movie.
It's the
girlfriend
corpse
around.
bride. It's literally a corpse bride.
She is the corpse bride. She is Sally.
She's Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas
Yeah.
with the stitches and everything. But
Right.
Mean Sally.
obviously, he has a type. He has a thing that he's into. And he's like, all right, what role can Monica Bellucci have in this movie? I'll just write a role that doesn't really fit into the rest of the movie. And that's what he did. So,
Well, I
Yeah.
saw Red Letter Media. They were talking about the trailer, but there's the bit in Beetlejuice 1 where he gets the wedding ring. It's like, oh, she didn't mean a thing to me, babe. And like, it's like this finger will now be a whole character, and like that's exactly what
Right.
they did.
I didn't even think about that.
This
yeah.
throwaway line will make that a whole revenge plot and execute it poorly.
I don't know. I just think you can argue as a movie, there's a lot of like, it just, it kind of goes everywhere. But I kind of like the vibe of like, it's just bouncing around these crazy plot threads constantly. It's just this mismatch of stuff. I don't know. It just kind of worked for me.
But I bring this up to say that this is the introduction to our character. I don't know if you guys know him. His name is Beetlejuice. His plot is mainly tied to her, and then he's kind of in the background. Then when she becomes a nothing character, he becomes tied to the serial killer kid that you'll fix this for us. Then when that's wrapped up, you're kind of like, oh, so Beetlejuice doesn't need to be in this movie anymore. And by the end, he's like, no, I'm kind of still the bad guy, but there also is a bigger bad guy in that I have this wife thing that we introduced in Act 1 that we really have not resolved yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because Beetlejuice is sort of an antagonist, but sort of an anti-hero at times where other characters will need his services at times, but he always has an ulterior motive of like,
Right.
yeah, so Lydia needs his help, but he'll only do it if she agrees to marry him because that's what he wanted after all these years is to be married to Lydia.
Way cutting forward, but my favorite was when Catherine O'Hara needs his help, and she's like, all right, I'm finally going to do it. And he says it, and he's just there, and he's like, yeah, now that you're dead, you want to hang out with me? It's like, it's not a big deal at all that she summons him. I was like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was good.
And her whole death scene is very funny because she's like, yeah, I got these defanged asps and stuff.
That I did see coming. When she said they were defanged, I'm like, no, they're not.
But it's funny. I don't know. A lot of the stuff.
Well, and Jenna Ortega, off that, it's like, well, your art's going to go up in value. And she's like, oh, sick. Like,
yeah, and that's a happy ending.
Right.
And that kind of builds on the
very
idea
funny.
that these characters a lot of times don't even care that they're dead. Like they have other cares. Yeah. Like
You
the Alec
don't
Baldwin and Gina Davis.
realize how senseless this entire universe really does view death. That is, I guess, the thing I had a problem with in the sequel, which is true to the first one, like very much so. But it's the flippancy that all these characters have. Now I'm like, that's insane. You're all acting insane.
Yeah, but it's a horror comedy, and so in this movie they sort of introduced that you can die, but then you can also be dead, which is when Monica Bellucci sucks your soul out of your body or your life
Right.
essence and kills you for real, like
Mhm.
Danny DeVito, right? So
And this
then
is
you shrivel
introduced
up in a
by
little.
Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe, who says, "When you die that way, you die." He is Wolf. What is
Willem
he's
Dafoe again
the cop
doesn't
of the
have a lot
afterlife.
to do with
He's
the
got
rest of the movie,
nothing to do
but
in this.
every time he's on
He
screen,
walks
was
around
so
with the
funny.
second unit. Yeah.
Every time his assistant handed him a coffee
Yes.
cup, I've lost it.
That's my favorite joke in the entire movie. Is the
Yeah.
coffee cup.
To me, it was the cue cards. I legitimately was the only time I laughed out loud in this film. I was like,
I
"That's pretty
appreciate,
good."
the character of I was an actor who played cops in
You're not a
movies, so
cop.
now I'm an
You're an
underworld
actor.
cop.
I have 5 films and 1 reboot.
Right. What's his make it real? Is that his catchphrase?
Make it real. Come on,
Yeah.
make it. Throw it away. Make it real.
Yeah.
So essentially, he's an actor who played a cop, died, and then became a cop in the underworld, I guess. And he
wanted to do his own stunts, and it was a live grenade that killed.
Yeah, so like half his face is like messed up.
Yeah.
And he's sort of a detective who's trying to find Beetlejuice's ex-wife, Monica Bellucci, I guess.
Because she's dangerous, soul sucking.
Yeah, and he shows up again, at the wedding, and the third act wedding is kind of where all these characters come to a head in this crazy scene. But
an alarm goes off at one point, and he says, "A Hume has broken in. This is the number one thing we can't have." Meanwhile, Astrid was brought in 30 minutes beforehand by another ghost, sets off no alarms. It's not.
Yeah, well, she said that incantation or whatever.
Yeah,
so maybe
again, it just feels like every couple of minutes they'd be like, you know what, we still do have Willem Dafoe on set. Should we write a couple pages for him to just say some stuff? Where it's like this feels disjointed in ways that are so jarring.
Mm-hmm. The number of days they were on set together, I want to know, because it's probably not many.
No.
I don't know. I guess I sort of just like the disjointedness of it. Maybe it would have been better as like a TV show or something, because it feels like
I was kind
it
of
doesn't.
thinking that too.
That's interesting.
Like the way the plots sort of intersect and there's all these different plot threads. Like it feels like it's paced more like a TV show that's like fit into a movie. And so maybe it doesn't work that well as a movie.
Miniseries. Beetlejuice.
Oh my gosh.
That would be something that would have maybe made more sense for this.
But again, I mean, you're not going to make, as much money on a
over
miniseries as a
$100,000 on your
release
fucking
movie.
opening weekend. I mean, this movie was a smash. We will definitely be getting, and Mike, get ready.
Yep.
Beetlejuice.
No.
Yep. Well, here I am.
I don't know.
Oh, they
will. I kind of think we won't, because I don't know. Tim Burton said it took 30 years to make this movie. I don't think I have another 30 years in me, basically.
That is a joke.
They're going to rush it out.
This is a man who is obsessed with making money, and anybody who thinks he's not is insane. He is closer to Catherine O'Hara than he is anybody else.
Dang, that's really good.
That's what's so interesting is that the Catherine O'Hara character is such a subconsciously that's the real him, like in the first movie where she's making art, but it doesn't really have any meaning behind it other than her wanting to become famous and
I'm obsessed with commercial appeal. I'm the weirdo loner. Why does anyone else like me? If I make this stuff, will you like me? That is what drives him.
Yeah. But again, I don't see a Beetlejuice 3. Like, what would the plot even be? Like, I think this one works because it's been so long since the last one.
Fucking Justin Theroux comes back as the villain and they all team up again. Like, it's
I might be out on that.
Justin Theroux and Monica Bellucci are the power couple.
This works as a one-off. I don't really necessarily want a Beetlejuice 3. So
no, we didn't get the confrontation we deserved with Monica Bellucci. We got to run it back with Justin Theroux. They're the power couple in hell, and they're coming for Beetlejuice and Astrid and the whole Deetz family.
The James Dean kid, gets revenge from hell. Yeah. I mean, there's 50 ways you do.
With the kid, again, I love that they just end that plot thread with him being dropped into fire, and that's the last they talk about it.
And it's like a
Beetlejuice just picks up
bit.
plots and drops them.
See you fucking later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
For left field. I don't.
Sorry, we have to. I just have to talk about that moment for 2 seconds. In that,
do it.
Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is brought into the netherworld. He's made a contract with Lydia Deetz and he wants to marry her. He will help save the daughter in order to do that. He wants to get married to her to get away from his ex-wife. So what does he do? He goes to the afterlife where he knows where his ex-wife is. Totally makes sense logic-wise. They then are walking down a hallway, and she's like, so what do I do? And he's like, well, you just go that way. I've got other stuff to do. He disappears for 15 minutes of the films, and he comes back to help save Astrid in that moment to punk this kid. He doesn't know that kid. He's just like working there. It's like a throwaway gag that he does it. But again, the logic of it, you're like, why? Why is any of this occurring? It's so crazy.
The Soul Train.
I don't know.
I want to have a big cool down on the Soul Train at the end here, because that is some stuff that needs to be discussed. But in the meantime, we get what you guys keep saying is the strongest part, which is this mother-daughter relationship. They get some closure because they see Astrid's father.
Right.
And again, you have this moment, this opportunity of they sit down, and all he does is like, I know your costume. She's like, yeah, you do, Dad. And he's like, I'll always be there for you. And they leave. This is a guy who disappeared. They didn't know he was dead. His wife is addicted to pills. His daughter is estranged from his mother. He needs to explain what happened to him that drove him to go to this place. They throw out, there's this one line, oh my God. And Jenna Ortega has, and God bless her, she keeps doing this. Girl, you need to stop saying these things. You have to stop bullying these two screenwriters. They must be the most malleable screenwriters in Hollywood. She made those comments about Wednesday about how she bullied them and changed everything. And this, she was like, and I was the warden on set to make sure that there was stuff for younger people and blah, blah, blah. She says these early lines where she's like, I'm interested in the environment. I'm part of we have to stop global warming. This throwaway thing where you're like, okay, sure, whatever. That's fucking insane. Where, yes, she has this comment where she goes, well, Dad went to the Amazon because saving the rainforest was his biggest passion. And you're like, okay, what? Why? They sit down and have this moment to have a beat where they can truly have some heart in this movie. It can have one little scene where everybody just acts normal for a second and goes like, this is what this movie is about to us. Instead, he's like, all right, you guys gotta go. And any moment, it just undercuts. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't feel that way necessarily.
I think they could have gotten more juice out of the squeeze there, definitely. Like when she first sees him, and it's like, I haven't seen my dad in like however long. When she sees him working at the desk, I'm like, ooh, we're getting some emotion.
This should be horrifying to you. Your dad was eaten by piranhas.
Yeah.
But again, it's the overarching thing. It's what Jacob said. The attitude to death in this is like, oh, so you're doing okay. You got a desk job. And he's like, yep.
Well, I mean, that scene comes at a time when
she's... thing I've ever seen.
Basically, she was tricked by this kid to come into the afterlife to exchange souls with him. But in order for that to happen, he has to get his passport stamped, right? And so she's sort of dealing with that when she sees her dad. So she's like, she's got other things going on. She can't just stop and like start talking to her dad.
Right. No, I'm saying that I like that moment worked but there's more you can get like when they do meet up, as Colin's saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I like the scene when they reunite with Winona and everything and they hug.
It's not a scene. It's 5 lines of him going, I like your costume. Have a good day.
What else can they say?
They need to have catharsis. The entire plot is based around how bad she feels about her father being dead. There is no relief. There is no story, momentum to just pay off any of that stuff that they set up. It is so frustrating.
Can I ask a question? This is a little bit of a jump ahead, but we do a montage where we jump forward to Jenna Ortega's future life. Do they cut to him? They could just show the dad ghost like, hey kiddo, and like at her wedding. Did they do that?
No, they don't do anything like
okay, but see, they could have been like, oh wow, he's there for the important moments of my life now, and I can see him because I have ghost powers like my mom, and I accept my mom. Like, that's all right there in front of you, Colin.
Right,
I agree.
Am I wrong that whole thing is like a dream sequence that Winona Ryder was having?
It is, but so
that didn't really happen.
But even like when they're having a resolution final scene, just pan up to the window and...
Yeah. I guess.
There could be some, but again, the rules are, for some reason, and we skipped over, let's talk about Beetlejuice's origin story. How is this man impossibly powerful? He's not like a wizard.
He's a trickster demon. He's like
But
a
he's not a
poltergeist.
god. He's not but he's not. We get a payoff of
True.
who he is. He's just a little grave robber who died 600 years ago, and I hate knowing his backstory.
Yeah. I do think that is lacking, like how we met Monica Bellucci and stuff. It's
Well, yeah, but that's
I
not
think
his
it's
whole
funny, the Italian
history,
dub,
right?
but
Yeah,
it is. What is it otherwise?
That's just how he met Monica Bellucci.
But how
right?
did he
Or,
become
how
a
he
demon?
died.
Yeah, but he met her. She gave him poison and stuff, and then he died. But we don't know what happened after he died until
So we don't-
sold his soul to the devil or something. I
Yeah,
mean,
how did he
that's-
get powers?
I guess.
I don't know. He became a bioexorcist.
But even that,
There's
when
not
he's
everything
working,
has to be explained.
But this film goes out of its way to explain these things, and he works in a call center where people are hiring bioexorcists. That's the job
Right.
he's gotten in the time that we've seen him since. My point is, how do you make that leap from dying? He was a normal, natural person, but at the
Right,
end,
but he was like,
you summon him. No one else is summoned by their names. He
Mhm.
has infinite power when he is in our realm. He can stop, Willem Dafoe with the snap of the fingers. He can do this to all these other ghosts.
Mhm.
Why?
No, we don't know how that he became that way, but all we know is that he was dead for like 600 years. So it probably happened in between him dying. So we know he met Monica Bellucci, we know he died, and then he was dead for 600 years. He was in the afterlife bureaucracy, and then probably gained some powers somehow. In the first movie, he was the assistant to their caseworker, the Maitland's caseworker, right? And then went freelance or whatever. But I don't know. It's not explained exactly his origin story. Like, I don't think
There's also the implication that all those bureaucratic workers are suicides in the first film, and he is not a suicide. It's always been implied that Beetlejuice killed himself, and that is not paid off at all. He is murdered.
Right.
is it suicides? I just thought it was just dead people, and just however you died is you stay
They
that
work
way.
with are, the coach, I don't think I survived. The football player says that. That's her counseling, the Maitlands. They didn't commit suicide. Or I guess maybe they did commit suicide. I don't know.
They
I never
not
realized
whatever
it was
dog.
only supposed to be suicide.
The clerical workers, that's the punishment for doing a suicide, is you have to work at the DMV, basically. That's the way I
Odo is the
understand
one
it.
who says it after he reads the book.
Right. So, because like the lady had slit wrists in the first movie and stuff, so.
Right. Oh, I guess I missed that.
The magic guy who dies in the box, who's still there.
Mm-hmm. But, the rules aren't explained on a lot of this stuff because it's not thought out. But I want to mention one thing like that. We have the one shrunken head guy in the last movie. And then now, just because that was in there, we have 10 of them. And it doesn't make any sense.
True.
So that's a little bit of like,
Bob.
Okay, guys.
I've
got a
seen
lot of
so many
Bobs.
people who are like, my heart was so broken when Bob died. Bob is not a character. Why would you give a shit about anything that happens to
He's
any
friends
of
with Beetlejuice. How dare you?
Right.
He's friends with Beetlejuice.
Hey,
But the
Bob,
one thing,
probably
the one thing
wondering how you just got tied down.
Yep. No, the one thing I do like about his setup, though, is he's got his call center and all of them have their mouths sewed shut and they're answering phones. I'm like, that's a funny gag. That's stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Was Beetlejuice fat in the last one?
I think he had a little bit
he had a
rotund.
belly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing: things that you're critiquing, saying like, "Oh, not his powers aren't explained and stuff," but you could say all that about the first movie too.
I don't care. I don't care about that. My point is that it goes out of its way to plug in his backstory. Don't do that. I don't.
But
think
it's
you
not
should
his whole
explain any of
backstory.
it
It's just
or
how
don't
he
explain
met
any of it.
his ex-wife, because that's important to the story.
He could have met her in the after. They could have already been dead and met each other, and it just been like, oh.
But I think her killing him is kind of important to the plot too. But like in the first movie,
what does that scene tell us?
Because she's sucking souls out of people and stuff. She's trying to suck his soul. But here's the thing. Okay, in the first movie, why is he miniature? Why is he in that little model? Why do the Maitlands have to like dig up his grave in the model and stuff? Like none of that's ever explained.
It's crazy. I'm fine with all of it. Because that film
So-
goes out of its way to not give you any of that info. This film is like, we gotta see Beetlejuice as a human. And you're like, that is the last thing I want to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just thought that was just to explain how he knew Monica Bellucci.
I like how it was done. I liked the weird Italian dub,
Yeah,
you know,
that was
black
funny.
and white film.
I did think there was an error.
Beetlejuice is doing bits. He loves doing bits.
What was the error?
No, I thought the audio switched. Like I was like, I thought they made a mistake. I was like, whoa, Italian dub on this reel? Like weird.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But then it's
No,
like,
he's just
okay, they're doing a bit. Yep.
He just loves bits.
He does
Just a
love bits.
movie of bits.
He loves it.
He's gonna love the blockchain.
He loves doing lip syncs to songs.
Boy,
doing
and
all of
this
it.
film is a
one.
musical. This film.
Yeah.
You liked the Deo, and it's like, let me tell you, we've got 4 Deos, and you're like,
Well, I like
no.
the wedding scene. I like I like that.
Everybody's singing, doing different lip syncing. I mean, I knew they were gonna. You saw it in the trailer. They were calling it back
It's good
anyway.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a little messy. There's stuff in it that I like, but
It's got too many plot threads. It's got almost too many things going on, and it doesn't
want to say
quite
the messiest.
coalesce.
The messiest thing to me is the Soul Train. Now,
Mm.
Tim Burton, someone who has no people of color in his movie. He now has one actress that he likes, who's of course Latinx. And God bless her. This is not for me to say. An incredibly passing, as they call it, Latinx person who looks very Caucasian or white front facing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who in the past has been asked, why are there no black people in your movie? And his response was, black people don't fit in my world. Now,
That's true. Yeah,
we have a moment where he goes, well, here's where black people can go. Black people love soul music. So the Soul Train will have black people on it. And you're like, Tim, how those screenwriters were just like, Tim, stop. No, you can't do this.
I guess I didn't.
Is so offensive.
He's like, it's a
think
pun
about
though.
that.
It's a pun. Do you get it? It's a pun. Yeah.
I didn't really see it as.
We'll have
offensive. I just
only
thought-
5 black people in this movie, and they will be dancing and doing disco because that's what black people do to me. And you're like, Tim, that is what year do you think it is?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it, but I mean, Soul Train, it's funny because it's a train that people's souls go on.
It's just a silly pun to him, right? But
Yeah.
I could see the optics being strange.
Yeah, it wasn't offensive to me, but I understand if people do take offense to it, I guess.
I hope they will.
Yeah. I think he's just committed to
I
the
just didn't
dumb
think
bit,
about
but
it.
I could see it being a potential friction point. And,
Definitely, I mean, he definitely has a problem with, not casting
Diversity.
people of color.
His
and
other
saying,
comments back in the day were, I can't be racist. I used to watch blaxploitation movies. And you're like, Tim,
Tim.
yeah,
you need to stop answering these questions.
Dang, we're spending a month on this guy now.
right. But I don't know.
As a silly pun in a script, and it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
To get on the soul train, take her soul, whatever. Like, okay, I get
Yeah.
the underworld vibe. Yeah.
It also doesn't make any sense because not just that, but just this ending beat where Catherine O'Hara says, well, I'm going to find your father and we'll haunt you guys forever. And it's the nice little moment of, oh, you'll become the new Maitlands. And then immediately it cuts to her going, all right, let's get on the soul train to the great after. And
Right.
Like, you just said that thing about how you're going to see your granddaughter and daughter all the time. What are you doing?
That's true. I don't need to watch it again, but I'm trying to, the rules are never making sense. Like
Scene to scene, it's almost like they don't remember what they wrote in the scene prior to it. That is my main issue with this movie.
I guess. But I don't know. I think that's everything. Everything that you have a problem with in this movie existed in the first movie. Yeah, but also it's. I think it's consistent in tone to the first movie, and I think that's why I like it as a legacy sequel. And it's referencing the first movie, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's just referencing it just to reference it. Like it feels like a direct sequel to the first movie, and when it brings up things from the past from the first movie, it's in a way that makes sense to me, and fits the story. So I don't know. I guess to compare it to like the new Ghostbusters movies and stuff, I think I like it a lot better than that. And even
yeah,
I can make Mike mad too and say I liked it better than Alien Romulus as
That's
a legacy
insane.
sequel.
That's
Alien
fine.
Romulus
Not
has
as
a
a-
plot that I can track.
It's
Not
not
I think-
want.
Alien Romulus is a better movie. But as sort of a legacy sequel, like the sort of cringeworthy moments in Romulus are worse than this movie in that way.
The movie also uses digital effects to bring up a dead character, not a dead actor. But the Jeffrey Jones of it all, dog, that was I felt
but that's different because he's not
Hollywood films
really
do this
dead
trick twice.
He's just metaphorically dead because he's dead to Hollywood.
Society.
I was trying to watch the credits to see who is credited with being that torso walking around with a shark bite. And I couldn't see it. I don't even think they've listed it.
Do these movies make you guys nervous about how you'll die and that you'll be punished forever how you die?
I don't like that you have to have...
me die like alone and like calm,
without any bodily injuries.
Those are some of the best bits in this, though, like the radiation suit guy. And even in the first one, you want a cigarette. It's like, no, I'm trying to cut back to dude's literally ash. Like
Ken Ortega saying Merry Christmas to the burnt up Santa.
Yeah, that stuff is again similar to the first
football
one.
Team.
The police in their weird chips outfits. You know, there's good stuff to be had, I think, on art design, and it is tonally similar to the first one. I just think the script is tightened up.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like it. Like, it is a bit of a mess script wise, but it's just so full of these crazy gags and ideas and stuff.
The thing that I take the most offense to is the people who are like, Tim Burton's back. And you're like, what do you mean? Well, this is his, he's back. This is his first good movie forever. First of all, I liked Dumbo. Dumbo is a very interesting movie. It is one of the saddest films ever made if you watch that movie. It is about Colin Farrell saying, well, my wife died and I lost my arm in the war. And now I just kind of think about killing myself all the time. And there's
an elephant too, right?
This little elephant with giant ears who can fly. And this, I'm like, what? So how is Tim Burton back? Well, some stuff was painted with white stripes and black stripes, and there's practical effects. And you're like, but it's not a good movie. In my opinion, that to me does not equate to being back. That is him just making the same shit again. This is, to me, Planet of the Apes. It's a great aesthetic with a horrible delivery.
I don't know. It's not Big Fish. It's not Ed Wood, but it is sort of maybe like a Mars Attacks where it's just a lot of zany stuff happening without any real, thematic coherence or anything. But and we'll, maybe we'll get into some Mars Attacks later on, but and see how that holds up.
I'll be defending that movie. I think that film is great.
Yeah, but it's this movie. I mean, there is some stuff there. I think the mother-daughter stuff, the 3 generations of women in the family, that's the real heart of the movie, and then it's just a bunch of zany bits and gags, and I just kind of loved it.
I mean, it again, when the gags are gagging, I love that coffee cup. They do it like 30 times, and every time I'm like, hell yeah, bring it back.
Yeah.
It's
like
just
the
like
gross
Monica
out
Bellucci's.
Gags, it's a return to the the big dumb comedy horror blockbuster that you just don't get too many of these days.
I'll say 3 big laughs: the Willem Dafoe cue cards, Beetlejuice flashback where Monica Bellucci is the one who throws him on the bed. That moment made me laugh a bunch. And then when doing the therapy session with Justin Theroux, and they get shrunk down at first, and they see the big sign and it says marriage counseling. You've got problems, so do I. I thought was very good.
Yeah,
nice.
Like honestly, they should bring obviously Michael Keaton, Michael Douglas doesn't probably want to do this, but if they just brought back a Beetlejuice TV show where it was just Beetlejuice doing shenanigans episode to episode, maybe recast Beetlejuice with a different actor who's more willing to do a TV show. But
you want a prank show?
Yeah, it's Beetlejuice. No,
I want like a Beetlejuice going on adventures, like being hired as a bioexorcist by different people every episode, and him just doing wacky gags and stuff. Like I think Beetlejuice himself is a funny character. He I don't know. He almost reminds me of Aladdin, the genie from Aladdin, Ron Williams, another character who just loves to do bits all the time.
That's a great comp.
100%.
Yeah. I was wondering, when they made Aladdin, did they take any inspiration from Beetlejuice? Obviously, Robin Williams is kind of his humor style was just.
Robin Williams, a guy known for taking influences and claiming they are his own and using them. A guy who was a
Right.
huge joke thief, basically. I could absolutely see that.
Oh,
Yeah. But just have Beetlejuice come in as this like trickster demon character and get into shenanigans with different characters every episode. I think that would be kind of
I mean,
fun.
again, he was a stand-up. You see why
Yeah.
this is in Michael Keaton's bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear there's a lot of
And
improv
he's-
even on the
he's-
first movie too, where he's just kind of that was just him coming up with the bits.
Right. Do you think he liked coming back to do this role more or coming back to do Batman in the Flash
It's
more?
interesting that he stopped after Returns, and again, maybe we'll talk about this soon, because he was like, I hate putting the makeup and the suit on. I find it constricting. And now, obviously, that is just not an issue for him. Do you think that's because
Right.
the practices have improved so much, Jacob? I don't know why I'm split on why
Yeah.
he came back for this.
Bag of
wondering,
money.
like,
monetary reasons.
I think he probably had more fun shooting this than he did have shooting the Flash.
I
Mhm.
saw an interview with him where he said, I think the role I will be remembered for is Beetlejuice. So I almost wonder if that's him now saying that too many people have played Batman, that this is something
That's the
he can
thing,
take
yeah.
ownership of. Yeah.
Batman's been done, Bruce Wayne's been done by so many different people. And obviously he was the first live action, not counting Adam West, but
Right.
Yeah, you
You
can't
know.
even say movie, because obviously Adam West had a movie to the 1966 film.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that 89 movie, of course, defined the image of Batman as this sort of stoic, brooding guy, Bruce Wayne.
You
Mhm.
wanna
He
get
kinda
nuts?
nailed that
Let's get
role.
nuts. Yeah.
Yep.
And he was great as Bruce Wayne and Batman. So it's interesting that he can do. I don't know. He's just got great range. That he
Do you
can
remember
that, and he
in
can do
Neighbors
Beetlejuice.
with Seth Rogen and Zac Efron when they're smoking weed together? He says, "Your Batman's like Christian Bale. My Batman was Michael Keaton." And he's like trying to like explain to him. He's like, "My Batman was a normal guy."
Right. That is true. Every generation. Now we have Pattinson, Bale, right?
Yeah.
But he's
Pattinson,
our
yeah. But they all
Batman.
sort of took inspiration from, obviously, in the 80s, Batman started becoming a more dark character rather than the
Yeah.
sort of goofy Adam West.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be talking too much about Batman because we
No, but
Yeah.
the Tim Burton of it
Talk
all.
about it.
Again, he almost did Superman. He did Batman as obviously the Christopher Reeves films existed first in the 70s, but it was the first blockbuster it transformed. And the quote Michael Keaton loves to do on this tour now is, there would be no MCU and there would be no DC Universe if it wasn't for Tim Burton. And he is right about that.
Damn, yo, respect.
Yeah, comic
that's
book
true.
movies in general, like probably wouldn't exist in the same way without '89 Batman.
Yeah.
And you could say, Richard Donner Superman as well, but
That
Yeah,
one,
I don't
that
know.
one cracked. Donner cracked the door, and Batman kicked
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
it open.
You're right.
Yep.
Is there any
Yeah.
other moments you want to shout out for this movie before we move to our
I'm
final
trying to think.
thoughts here?
I mean, the wedding, I thought that was great when it's just like all the characters coming together.
Richard Harris. So let me just say this story real quick. The first time I ever saw a film called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, we left the theater, and my dad said, "You know that guy who played Dumbledore, Richard Harris? He
He's
was
a
like
serious actor.
a pretty serious actor when I was a young man." I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, really?" And you want to hear this? This is the worst song ever written, is what he said. And then he turned on MacArthur Park, aka I Left the Cake Out in the Rain, the dumbest song to ever been recorded. Anytime I hear it, I laugh so much. I
Yeah.
was shocked that it was in this movie.
Yeah. Well, but that's what Beetlejuice
Yeah.
loves to do, these random, like Harry Belafonte in the first movie, obviously.
Mhm.
He has these random pulls of these deep cut songs that he just makes people perform. And just always funny to me to see people not understanding why they're lip singing to a song and coming to
Yeah.
terms with that. I also thought, shout out to Bern Gorman, the pastor
Yeah.
in this movie. I always
Oh,
like
yeah.
that guy when he shows up and stuff.
Yeah,
I've seen him in a
sure.
lot of different things.
Civic Rim, bunch of good stuff. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm so sorry to keep harping on this. I get so sour on this plot stuff where Astrid gets the thing at the end and she goes, "Oh, I know what we'll do." And she draws the door, and the sandworm comes out, and it eats Rory, it eats Monica Bellucci, who truly just walks through the cathedral door, and everybody goes like, "Oh yeah, you're in this movie." Like, it's a point. It's a moment where Beetlejuice is like, "Oh yeah, we're in a film that's being written, and there's plot threads to wrap up," and you're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Okay, well, you have to marry me, Lydia, Winona Ryder, and Astrid goes, "No, because you broke code 661B of the book." She says this thing where you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? How would you know that? Listen, it's almost again where you're like, what scene was there where she was reading the little book and learned these loophole things? You almost wonder.
Because when she was with the guy that she was
sure,
reading the book, right?
But you almost wonder if it's previously set up when Winona Ryder says, well, you know, there used to be ghosts in the attic. And Jenna Ortega says, well, what happened to them? And she says, they found a loophole and they got to go to the great beyond. And you're like, okay, this is setting up a loophole. Right. And then Astrid says this thing about a loophole at the end. There's no way that they're the same fucking loophole. It doesn't make any sense when she quotes this thing.
Is full of like all these crazy bureaucratic rules and stuff, so she could have just found a loophole.
There's a lot of loopholes in afterlife law.
Sure,
it's all
you
about
can get married to get out. You can switch souls with someone to get out. Sometimes you just walk in a church to get out. We don't know.
That guy, you say his name 3 times, he just appears. That's chapter 7.
Look, we don't even know everything about it though. Like that's the thing. Like but that whole thing with the Maitlands, I think that was to explain why Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis weren't in this movie, which obviously, now I would have liked it if they were. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense because ghosts don't age and they're obviously much older than...
You know what I heard? I heard Mr. Maitland is haunting the set of Rust.
Oh, no. But it would have been, you know, it would have been nice to see Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin.
You know what? Here's what I thought. Why not at the end have them poke out the Soul Train window and just wave?
Yeah.
What does that cost you? And they can look older.
They look a lot different
than in
now.
Heaven. But at least it wouldn't just be black people dancing.
Fair.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a loophole.
And Beetlejuice, I mean, here's the thing. Beetlejuice is older, obviously. They don't explain that.
In his voice, I said it to you guys off pod, he can only do the low register. He can't do the loud screaming anymore.
Yeah, true. But, you know.
He's older, you know.
All right. Well, I think we could probably get on the old Soul Train and head on over to final thoughts.
Yeah, I loved it. Perfect movie.
All right.
10 out of 10.
If you said this film was okay or good, I would be like, that is a fair opinion. Your opinion that it is like this paragon of incredible Lego sequels and that you love it, that is a wrong take.
Well, I don't actually think it's
in a way that we exiled Joe when he said Wrath of Khan was bad.
Yep.
I don't think it's actually, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I'm just joking when I say that, but I do think it's possibly better than the first one. And I think it's one of the better legacy sequels that I've seen, and I think it's a good movie. Yeah.
Fair.
But let's jump over to final thoughts.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We have dug up all of our thoughts on this film, and now we are going back underground, back to the netherworld. Maybe being sent to hell, maybe being sent to the good place. Did they call it the good place, like the TV show in this one?
Yeah.
I think heaven, right?
Called it, I think they might have said heaven. I can't remember that.
The Great Beyond, right?
The Great Beyond. Yeah, it's true. It's
we're heading to the Great Beyond with our final thoughts
on the Soul Train.
Beetlejuice. I will not be taking the Soul Train.
Okay.
I will be staying away from that.
Fair. Well, I will say, I'm in the middle, I think, between you guys. I think there's things that work, things that don't work, but I mentioned earlier, it doesn't land the emotional beats. I agree with Colin, like where it needs to, and the script is uneven, and I just keep thinking of Monica Bellucci in a room with one random other, like, below the line actor and like the second unit, and it's like you're just by yourself for this whole movie, like that kind of stuff, and get Jeffrey Jones the fuck out of the entire thing.
That's why they cast Danny DeVito, Mike, to have one A-list star in a scene with her, and then they were like, well, he's not really a character though, so don't like think that he's gonna like do scenes with you.
No, that's just with cameo, Bob, which is like a mannequin. Yeah,
I think Danny DeVito was just Tim Burton just wanting Danny DeVito to be in the movie because he was in Dumbo too, right?
Yeah,
and of course, he
just likes having his regulars, right?
No, but shout out to the coffee cup. That's a great bit. The guys who can't talk on a call center is very funny. Like there are moments where I'm like, this is a good bit, but it is bit based, Jacob, and I wish the script was tighter. I guess that's where I'm at.
But Beetlejuice as a character is bit, like that's the whole thing about it is bit based.
But the first one had a plot.
The guy who you claimed is not the lead of this film, so should not be the influence of how the entire. Hold
This
on.
movie has a more of a plot than the first movie, though.
No
That is
way.
not true. There's
The whole plot of the first movie is just
insane.
Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis
Yes.
being ghosts.
Yes,
Like,
the
that's not a
plot is
plot.
we need to get these ghosts out of our house. And it involves heartfelt scenes like Lydia deciding she's going to commit suicide that, yes, are undercut with jokes of she throws out the first suicide note, but it never leaves it immediately. It doesn't feel like it's on a timer that every scene has to be 3 minutes long. Otherwise, we're going to have people looking at their phones or TikTok. The modernness of how movies are made, and I'm going to let you go last on your final thoughts so that we end positive here, Jacob, because I think it is important to feel positive about movies. Let me get my negativity out.
Old negative Colin.
We're in the Beetlejuice therapy room.
It looks terrible.
These movies now are not lit properly. This film is not lit properly in any way. I think it truly looks terrible. Practical effects do not mean your movie looks good. There are a ton of low budget horror films being made right now that use practical, grotesque, weird effects exactly like this that look good. Yeah, again, I would argue all modern movies look bad, but this one in particular. Jenna Ortega, one of my favorite actresses currently, rising star. I've watched like all of her work, truly, almost obsessively. I try not to be creepy because she's only 21 years old, and I'm obviously a gross old Beetlejuice fan who feels like
You're Beetlejuice.
Marrying a girl in a red wedding dress.
Right.
I think this is some of the worst work she's ever done. When you say that this is her playing off, type, no, it's not. This is them going like, well, we've got Jenna, she'll do her Jenna thing.
Well, if I can rebut you a little bit.
Please do.
It's interesting because I am not a huge Jenna Ortega fan. I think she's fine. I think she's been I haven't seen everything she's done. I think she's sort of been limited in the roles that she's taken. I don't see her
now.
Yeah, I don't see her as a Zendaya level actor or a Florence Pugh or a trying to think of another younger actress that's sort of breaking out, but I don't see her on that level yet because she just hasn't taken roles like that yet. And like with Zendaya, like she took, the Dune role and stuff like that, and she could take better roles too, I think. But like with Challengers, she did Challengers, which was
Euphoria, Challengers, Jacob, where she's doing material that's challenging. Watch The Fallout. That's her school shooting movie.
Right.
That is her as an actress, and then obviously Wednesday is her as a star. She is stuck in the star mode, and it's
right. And I haven't seen her take those kind of roles yet. And so I go the
she's
other way
in
where
3 movies,
yeah, I go the other way where I'm not a huge fan of her. I think she's fine, but I liked her in this movie actually.
Wow.
So I'm not, an expert on her, but
nor should I.
But I do think, she should, if she wants to go up a level, because right now, obviously, she's very popular with Gen Z and stuff, but if she wants to become a Timothée Chalamet, she's got to start working with some like Oscar type directors.
She did the finest kind, that Tommy Lee Jones drug movie where she was like an adult and having sex scenes and stuff, and it was a fucking disaster. I think that has scared her to stay in blockbuster mode, honestly.
And she's still young, so she'll still mature as an actress, I think too. I mean, I remember watching her. She was in the show You, about a serial killer guy, and that was when she was very young. And I was like, I did not expect her to break out and become the star that she is now, I guess. But I thought she was fine in this movie, and obviously she works in Tim Burton's aesthetic. And at least she's not another white person, so you can say that.
Wow, thank God. But I think when she says things like, I had to pull over my car because reading the script, I knew in that moment I had to do this movie.
Yeah.
Girl, keep those comments to yourself. If you're saying this is the best script you've ever read, that is more damning to your career than anything. Well, if you came out and honestly said,
type,
but it is, but you don't, but girl, shut your mouth. You don't need to hype up stuff like that. It is going to stall your career. If you came out and gave a very honest answer of, Tim Burton is like a weird uncle to me, we mesh very well, and I love to continue working with my kooky old grandpa, I'd be like, damn girl, you have a heart and a backbone and a great work ethic. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because she does talk about like these influences she has of like, all these different like
I'm obsessed
directors
with
and stuff.
movies.
People
Yeah,
said her
it's like
top 4
art
movies was a
film.
fake list because it's shit
Yes.
people never even heard of because she's
Right,
you know.
and I don't see her. I don't see that work. I don't see that reflected in her work yet because she's not making those kind of choices.
Hmm. Yeah.
Compared to, and I said, her and Winona bonded over being cinephiles and stuff. And Winona Ryder has done a bunch of different types of movies and stuff. So obviously, again, she's very young, so she's got a long way to go with her career that she can sort of break out and do different things.
I mean, yeah, and if nothing else, so like you could do a movie with Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton, like kind of get Gina Davis, gain some, not Gina Davis, but gain some of that wisdom. Like I'm like sick. I kind of look up to some of these people. Like, yeah, I'll do your weird movie.
I think the best set course for her is that when she directs a movie one day, it will be very good.
That makes sense.
Maybe. But yeah, I think
Beetlejuice 3.
If nothing else, like the experience of
that is a curse to unleash upon us. Don't you dare.
Well, like you said, if nothing else, the experience of working with Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton, and it really seems like from all the behind the scenes stuff I've seen, like her and Winona just really got along, and I'm just really happy that they found each other, I guess, because they're different generations but similar, similar outlooks. So, yeah, and I'm happy for Winona Ryder because I just always like her and stuff, and I'm glad that she's doing well in her career right now and stuff. So, yeah.
So this did what 147 million worldwide, like 111 domestic. So it's had a great opening,
better than I expected. And
it's his second lowest under Alice in Wonderland, but it's his highest grossing opening weekend
ever.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's only been out a weekend, so it'll probably surpass some of his other movies. But like, I do think it's a bit of a career resurgence for Tim Burton. Like, people weren't rushing out to see Big Eyes and stuff.
What does that mean? Does he just continue to rehash his stuff, or you would like to see him do what? What does a resurgence of Tim Burton lead to?
I don't know.
The 5th Planet of the Apes movie.
I think it just leads to a season 2 of Wednesday, doesn't it?
That's what I'm thinking.
It's just more paychecks.
Well, that's coming regardless, right?
It's been 5 years since we talked about that fucking thing. We talked about that in COVID.
That's how all TV works now.
That's insane, dog.
And they had their own Jeffrey Jones they had in the cast.
Oh my gosh.
They did. And to say things like, well, we're too busy to do a second season Wednesday, when you have the lead actress and the lead creator making this project before they do a second season, you're like, well, you could have found the time, I'm pretty sure.
It'll come out eventually. I mean, like you mentioned Euphoria with Zendaya, they're making a new season of Euphoria, and it's been like a million years since that show was last on. But that's just how TV works nowadays. I mean, you got Stranger Things coming back. Like, yeah,
the Stranger Things kids are 40 years old, and they will be playing 7 years old,
right?
Or whatever the horrifying math is. Yeah.
Is that the last season for that?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Jeez.
Before
it should be
off.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, running up that hill, what a scene, what a season. But they are getting older.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to. It's a joke I want to make. It's a bit. All right. So we have Michael Keaton. He was in Spider-Man, right? So what they could have done as a joke has been like, oh, well, my dad died studying spiders in the Amazon. Like, just throwing that.
Willem Dafoe come in and said, I'm a bit of a spider.
I'm a bit of a Beetlejuice myself. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I forgot we had Green Goblin in there
Tim
too.
Burton. They put that in Beetlejuice 3.
Did you guys like Justin Theroux?
No.
I thought he was fine, He's playing like an annoying character. He was annoying.
Another guy where he said, well, my performance was based on Otho, and when I got the script, I said, these are the changes you need to make. Again, this Go and Millar, are they just like, they're just like punching bags? Like any actor would be like, well, write this for me, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't really see him as the Otho of this movie. Like Otho was like a catty gay guy that
Yeah, this guy has no spine.
Yeah, I just didn't like this character, but I mean, he was not supposed to be likable.
And
he was something that Lydia needed to get over, basically.
Well, I just had a funeral. My grandfather died. When? 40 years ago.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was kind of funny too.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of jokes that made me laugh in this movie. To give my final thoughts, again, it's a mess. It's not a perfect film by any measure. I would not claim it to be so. But I really liked it. It's a big dumb comedy and I just don't see too many of those that really make me laugh like this movie did. And it's got a heart to it. So I just thought it was a fun time. Like, it's not going to win any awards, but for me, it's like a 3.5 stars.
But when we do our top 10 of the year at the end of the year, is this slipping in so far?
Probably not. I mean, I guess it depends on how many other movies. If I'm thinking like my past lists, like 3.5ers will.
No chance.
What's that?
If 11 movies come out this year, then it's not making your top 10.
No.
I don't know. I thought I gave Alien Romulus a 3.5. I think this is a 3.5 too, because it's better than a 3. It's not quite a 4.
I gave it a 2, and I'm with you where I gave the first Beetlejuice a 4. So it's maybe
I guess I did say I gave the first. Yeah, the first Beetlejuice is a 4, so maybe this is a 3.5. But I don't know. Some things about this did work better for me than the first movie. So I don't know. Is that a crazy?
No,
take?
it's okay to agree to disagree, but you're wrong.
Will you bring your Funko Pop real quick behind you?
Oh, yeah.
For Joel.
Oh yeah, we got a little
Viewers.
Morticia Addams here, sort of Tim Burton-esque.
Mhm.
Obviously Wednesday he did.
Get a Sharpie out. You put a big Stitch face scar on.
Yeah, it's Monica Bellucci.
You're done.
Yeah.
The amazing
true.
thing is that he didn't cast Monica Bellucci in Wednesday as Morticia Addams.
He should have.
I guess maybe were they dating at that time? I don't know how.
Well,
I
think again that he wanted to honor Charles Adams' actual Latino heritage, and obviously got Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
That's awesome.
She's Italian, Monica Bellucci. Could have Italian representation.
There also seems to be a joke people are very upset about. I didn't even know this, but that Jenna Ortega says, "Well, I'm dead physicist Marie Curie, French physicist. I guess she's Polish, actually. I always thought Marie Curie was French.
Me too. Shout out. Maybe she was doing her work in France. But that's one joke that was okay too, where it was like her work was literally killing her. Yeah, a Polish and naturalized French physicist, so she became a citizen
discovered
of
radiation
France.
and then died from radiation poisoning. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
The
irony.
That's cool, I guess. Well, see,
that's cool, I guess.
Her whole character, Jenna Ortega, it ties in. She cares about science and the environment. That's what we know about her.
Right. She has like a Save the Whales wallpaper or whatever.
Amazon. Okay.
The spider from the Amazon.
But again, how many? I don't know. It reminded me of. It's kind of reminded me of some 90s comedies that I like, such as The Addams Family.
Don't you dare. An immaculate film. Don't you dare compare it.
Which I feel the 90s Barry Sonnenfeld, but feels very Tim Burton core.
Tim Burton cinematographer, obviously. Early on. So
it just felt like a throwback to a big dumb 90s comedy, and I just had a lot of fun watching it. Again, it's not a perfect film by any measure, but I enjoyed my viewing experience, and I would recommend it.
You guys sitting in a cold theater beating the heat, Mike occasionally moving around. Every 40 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it in 40x maybe.
Oh, that's for the bit. Yeah. I love bits too.
Yeah.
Did it smell like rotting flesh?
No. Maybe that was just a public audience. I had to go to a civilian
they should,
theater.
Dump goo on you or something when
they were spraying water, and I'm like, thank God, because it was hot. Yeah, I thank the movie for keeping me alive and avoiding heat stroke. I loved it for that. So
yeah, honestly, I liked it more than I expected, because I went in not expecting anything really, and I did just see the first one, and I was like, okay, I'm in a Beetlejuice mood. But yeah, just sitting in a cool dark theater, having some laughs, seeing my
watching
friend
the Beetlejuice musical, Lauren Boebert next to you,
getting a handy, a rough above the pants handy.
Nothing like it.
Vaping.
Mike said people who didn't see the first one. I guess I couldn't understand kids going to this, but I bet this is a good date night movie for couples.
Oh yeah, I bet for sure.
Again, if you see this without seeing the first one, I can't imagine what you would think, because it is so reliant on knowing who these characters are from the first one. I think. Yeah. That
you just gotta hope
context.
You just gotta hope you catch the exposition lines that are sprinkled in, know.
Yeah.
But it is happening because people are just like, oh, this is popular and word of mouth.
Right.
I liked it more than I thought too, Jacob. Again, I have more issues with the execution of the script and some of the pacing and subplots.
That's fair. That's fair.
I had more fun than I thought. I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3.
I mean, Wednesday is terrible, right?
The show?
It's
mid.
enjoyable.
It has its moments.
I think here's why I think I enjoyed this is because it felt like Tim Burton enjoyed making it, and it didn't just feel like a soulless cash grab to me.
That.
Okay, I like that a lot
maybe
too.
It is a cash grab to a certain degree, but it didn't feel like he's just going through the motions.
But this one, he's like, you know what? I earned this, Jack. I think you're right.
And obviously, Beetlejuice, the movie, has a place in his heart where it is one of his, it kind of made him who he is to a certain degree with Pee-wee and Batman, obviously. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's like, he had fun making it, and I had fun watching it, I guess.
Yeah.
Seems like the crew had fun too. The cast, like you said, it does no evil. It just
got a fun vibe to it, I think.
No, I just think it's dumb. Calling it dumb fun is totally fine.
Yeah,
too.
I think it's dumb at times too. I think there's some good moments. There's some things that it genuinely like surprised me about it, but a lot of it is dumb. Yeah, but it's dumb fun.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to. And I could see this being. You throw both of them on at a Halloween party back to back, and they're just kind of rolling, like hanging out. Like, they're fine.
And again, the expectation of a legacy sequel to a 30-something-year-old movie, like the chances of it being good are pretty small. And
it could have missed by a lot more. That's true.
Yeah.
We're
other
lucky it's this
like
good. Yeah.
And it's hitting enough of the target, not close to the bullseye, but it's at
right.
least
But I can't think of many other movies like this of like clearly just cashing in on the original from years ago, cashing on people's nostalgia and for the original. They're usually not very good. So
no, they are not. I want to end my final thoughts here. I think we're done with just to comment on something Mike said, where my stepbrother said, "Why is this coming out in September?" And to Mike, what you said about how it's going to own Halloween. I think this is the most genius thing ever. You get all of September's box office, and then I guarantee you,
it's
HBO
going
Max,
on video demand in
the
October.
Fuck it says,
yeah.
But I guarantee you, HBO Max goes, hey, October 28th, whenever, the closest weekend to Halloween, they drop it, they put on there. It owns the Halloween holiday, and I guarantee this year we see a ton of Beetlejuice and Lydia's as the costumes. Like, this is going to be extremely pop. It has revitalized the Beetlejuice brand. So
right,
I agree
and
with
that's
you there.
A movie not many people were thinking about until now. So, like again, you said you were asking up top, like when was the last time you really thought about Beetlejuice? And it's been a while, right? So, it's a successful nostalgia cash in to the degree that you can be. And I'll tell you why it came out in September, Colin, because they know that it's Sep-Tim-Burton.
That's right. Let's talk about that real quick.
We got to let the trades.
We're going to be covering.
Learn that word.
What
can we talk about Michael Keaton more
next week?
Yeah. So obviously we've got the Apes at the end of the month. We have 2 episodes until then. So we've decided to do just some classic early-ish career Burton stuff. So we've got more Michael Keaton next week. We've got Batman and Batman Returns, right?
We're going to do them both.
Yeah. Do a double header. The 2, the originators. And then the week after that, we're going to do a little Mars Attacks.
Hell yeah.
I was pitching that because I remember liking that movie a lot for the camp, and I'm wondering if it holds up. So I hope it does.
I'm interested to see how it holds up as well.
It's been a while.
Colin, you're talking about a list that you read on Kotaku where they put Mars Attacks last out of all of Tim Burton's filmography, which does kind of blow my mind.
Factory?
He's got a lot of duds, I'll be honest.
Mrs. Peregrine's Day for a Year, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I guess when he swings, he does swing big. I gotta love him for that. It might not always work, but he takes his shots.
Also, Wonderland, I really don't like that movie at all. I don't understand what Johnny Depp is doing in that movie. I don't understand why he looks like that, what his performance is or anything. And I like a lot of the Johnny Depp collaborations with Tim Burton. I don't like that one.
I like that the ones we're covering don't have Johnny Depp in them. That's fun.
Yeah,
that's true. true.
And-
But I mean,
and
there are some good, like Ed Wood. Obviously, is a great.
Right, Ed Wood is
it's
yeah,
maybe his masterpiece. I would
probably
Edward
yeah.
Scissorhands. Yeah.
Ed Wood
Um,
Scissorhands,
Ed
Ed
Wood
Wood-
Scissorhands.
different movie.
Yeah. Again, 90s Burton, very strong. 2000s Burton, hit or miss. 2010s and on Burton, more miss than hit. Right? We
And
can all
is
agree on that.
anybody here will it be their first time doing Planets of the Apes?
No, I've seen that.
No, I've seen
It's been
it.
a while. We've all seen it. It's
Yeah.
Been a while though.
been a while though, so it'll be an interesting.
Maybe his
capstone.
first bad movie.
Mm,
About his filmography.
interesting. Well, we'll see maybe his first bad movie. We'll see his first Bat movie next week.
There we go, Mike.
Thank you. Now
As
we're cooking.
Burton continues. Follow us along all month long, and always hit us up at normies_like_us, where you can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out a lot. If you're a young person and you're like, "Fuck you, Colin, that movie ruled," right?
Yeah.
Jacob deserves to hear that he is correct.
Team Jacob.
If you're Team Bella or Team Edward or whatever I
Team
am,
Edward.
fucking hate
Scissorhands.
Team Edward Scissorhands.
Yes,
You gotta
yes.
moving out. Let me know as well. And check us out on YouTube.
Watch me sweat. It's great.
Hope you get your AC fixed soon.
I'm hoping so.
And
see.
yeah, that's Sep-Tim-Burton. We're excited to do more. So
And we have been your ghosts with the most. This is Colin Juice.
Is Michael Keaton Douglas.
this is Big Ol' Jacob.
All right. Smell you later, toots.